subcommittee meeting. We don't say the pledge during our meetings? I always forget. I guess not. It's not on my agenda. So I'm going to call for public comment. Following my...
I believe there's no public comment. Brian Passero is watching for public comment. We received no email, so we have no public comment.
Okay, then next on my agenda is to welcome Commissioner Renee Flowers.
She's not here. Is she supposed to be coming?
I didn't need to say anything, so thanks.
Okay, well, we will welcome her when she arrives.
Does Renee want to join the legislative subcommittee, I presume? Okay, oh, good. Okay, very good.
Okay, and then next we'll move on to the consent agenda items. And we have the January legislative subcommittee meeting minutes. Any comments on our consent agenda?
Move approval,
Items?
Madam Chair.
Second?
Comment? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. So on 5, we have information items. We have the federal legislative update with Harry Glenn and Steve Palmer from Vanscoy. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Morning, board members. Steve and I are here. We're going to give you a quick update on what's going on in Washington and kind of a look ahead to what we expect in the coming weeks. So I'll just start off by updating you on the COVID relief package. As you know, Congress is working fast and furiously to try and get the 5th COVID relief package done by the first week in March, if possible. The 9 House committees marked up their various sections of the COVID relief bill. The total is about $1.9 trillion. They've forwarded their recommendations to the House Budget Committee that's assembling those 9 packages into one bill, what they call a reconciliation package. The House Budget Committee is going to meet at 1 o'clock on Monday to, if they can get it all done in one day, to approve the package and send it to the full House to vote on sometime by next Friday, with the goal to get it over to the Senate the first week in March. The hope is to have all this done and signed into law before March 14th, when the current enhanced unemployment benefits expire. So there is $30 billion in this package for transit agencies that will be helpful. And so we'll continue to monitor that for you. Second thing is that the big news out of Washington this week is it seems more and more likely that the House Appropriations Committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee are going to bring back the process known as congressional earmark spending. I think they're calling them community projects now is the new term. The new chair of the House Appropriations Committee this week announced that they were moving forward with that, and as did the majority leader in the House. We don't know whether the Republicans are going to participate in the process or not, but the committee's in the process of writing rules on how the earmarking will go in this new session. You know, they haven't done it for 11 years, so they're going to have to bring back the process. It will only be available to public entities and nonprofit institutions. So certainly that would cover TBARTA. And so we'll continue to update you. I think Steve sent David a memo earlier this week on what kind of criteria that the committee's looked at in the past for earmarked projects. So we'll work with David and the staff about that to see if there's some opportunities there. The House appropriations process will probably kick off a little slower this year, so there'll be a little bit more time to think about this. It appears that the president's budget probably won't come out. It was supposed to come out the first week in February. It looks like it probably won't come out till late April or early May right now, which will delay the beginning of the appropriations process. They can't really move forward with writing various appropriations bills until they see what the president's recommending. So that'll give us some time there. I'm going to pass it over to Steve. He's going to give you a little update on some infrastructure news, the status of the nominees. And there was a major release this week of a notice of funding opportunity from the Department of Transportation. So I'll pass it on to Steve.
Thanks, Harry, and thanks, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to join you today. As Harry said, once the COVID relief bill is enacted, and we believe that will be done by March 14th, and that does provide $30 billion for transit. The next major piece of legislation will be the infrastructure bill, and we understand that President Biden is going to talk about that bill at his State of the Union address, essentially his address to the Congress, which is probably going to be sometime in March. A little bit, as Harry kind of indicated on the budget, a little bit later than usual, but That is, he's not going to do it until this bill, this COVID relief bill that's moving through the Congress is signed into law. But he will then plan to outline his proposal for infrastructure. We understand that the bill could be as big, well, start anywhere from $2 trillion, which is what his campaign proposal was over 10 years, to $4 trillion. That would be partially offset by tax increases. And obviously, something like that would have to go through this sort of streamlined budget process for consideration that would allow it for just 51 votes in the Senate rather than the supermajority of 60, which is usually needed for to avoid a filibuster. So more on that in the future, but we just wanted to let you know that that is probably the next big bill coming down the pike. And I should emphasize, while surface transportation is going to be a major part of that, there will be a lot of other infrastructure work included in that. Notably, what's happening in Texas with the grid, electrical grid is going to put an emphasis on putting more money into the electrical grid. There's a lot of interest in putting money into broadband, but the House will probably start with the surface transportation bill that they enacted last year, which provides $105 billion over 5 years for public transit. And there are significant funding increases for bus systems. So that's a good thing for TBARTA. And that's something we're keeping an eye on for you. Harry mentioned, well, very quickly, we know, you all know Secretary Pete Buttigieg was confirmed by the Senate earlier this month, at the beginning of the month. He has probably been on TV more than any Secretary of Transportation ever since the department was created in the 1960s. He was on CNN just a few minutes ago, in fact. So he is bringing a lot of star power to DOT. Nuria Fernandez has been named as the next FTA administrator. She comes from Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, where she was the CEO. She was also a deputy administrator at FTA during the Clinton administration, so she certainly knows her way around FTA. That her nomination hearing has not yet been scheduled, so that'll take a little bit of time, we think. And then lastly, Harry did mention that earlier this week, DOT rolled out its proposed funding opportunity for the Infra grant, which is basically not something TBARTA would be able to compete for because it's focused on highway and freight programs. But it's a large program. It's almost $900 billion. And the reason I bring it up is it gives us an indication of where this administration is going to be focusing on for future grant opportunities. And really, just to give you a couple of the things that they mentioned specifically that grant applications have to focus on are good paying jobs, check. Improved safety, check. Transformation technology, we can do that. And then explicitly addressing climate change and racial equity. So those are some of the things that we're going to be focusing on with David and the staff and future grant opportunities. But just wanted to highlight those for you because it's significantly different than the past administration. So, Madam Chair, and happy to turn it back to you, and we're prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Seems like there's some opportunity for us in all your comments there. Does anyone want to speak with our delegate, our lobbyists?
Are you looking at me?
I am, because you said you had a lot to talk about.
I do have a lot to talk about, and Ron, are you on the phone? Oh, sorry about that. I forgot where I was. Oh, there you are. Do you want to give a brief overview?
Oh, okay, we'll go to Ron then if no one wants to talk to.
Well, I do, but I would like Ron to give his comments first, Madam
Yeah,
Chair,
no
and then I will follow up with my thoughts.
Okay, Ron, are you there? I can't.
Chair members, quick update for you. Last Friday, we had an emergency legislative committee, as you met. You gave me some direction at that point, which we followed. Number one, we did meet with Senator Brandis this week about Senate Bill 1130, which, as we all know, would sunset TBARTA in June 30th of 2022. Had a meeting with him, which Commissioner Long was able to join us for that. And the bottom line is, and I'll let Commissioner Long make any comments she'd like, but Senator Brandis is going to move forward with the bill. I think he appreciated some of the comments that we're making, but at the end of the day, he believes at this point he wants to move forward in the Senate. You also asked us to meet with members of the Bay Area legislative delegation. David had already scheduled some time for this past Wednesday to do meetings with members. So we did a number of meetings with members from across the region. I will tell you, The large majority of them, A, did not know there was a bill filed to repeal TBARTA. Number two, most of them were very surprised. And number three, I would tell you that there was a lot of members I think are not supportive of moving in that direction. So we have more meetings that are scheduled with the legislative delegation with members over the next couple of weeks. And we'll obviously continue to continue that. The other thing you asked us to do with that meeting, and I think Chris has already sent it out as well. Chris dropped a resolution that county commissions could use with the talking points that we're using in Tallahassee on, and basically defending why TBARTA is relevant. So hopefully most of that's been sent, I know, to the Manatee County Commission, and I think to other commissions as well. Hopefully the talking points have been shared with you as well. If not, we'll make sure they're shared with you after today's meeting. Couple final things is Senate Bill 1130 was referenced yesterday. It got its typical 3 references. It goes to the Senate Transportation Committee. It would then go to the Senate Transportation Economic Development Appropriations Committee with Senator Hooper, as we all know. And then it would finally go to the Senate Appropriations Committee, where Senator Stargell is the chairwoman there. So there is still no House sponsor. Remember, in Tallahassee, he has to have a dance partner on this. And right now, as we speak, he's starting to run out of time. I know he's been working on finding a House bill sponsor, but as of this morning, there is no House bill sponsor. We have talked to a few members, I think, that have been approached, and I don't think any final decisions have been made, but there's been no commitments to have a House bill filed at the moment. So I will pause there to see if anybody has any questions, comments, and I'm more than glad to add additional comments as needed.
Well, any comments from,
Chair, I'd like to make a few comments.
sure, Jim?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and thanks, Ron, for that update. My concern, and I know there's been a lot of folks on the board and the committee that want to actively lobby simply to kill this bill. I think that is a wrong procedure. I think we should be in dialogue with Senator Brandes and other members of the Senate and the House. If it even gets referred to the House in a committee, that might be a moot and academic issue anyway. I just have concerns that us as a state created agency by the legislature, special district, goes out and affirmatively lobbies. We're not a home rule county or a city.
Yeah, that's wrong. Pinellas is a charter county.
You are. I'm saying Pinellas is, but I'm saying TBARTA is not a charter
County or city. And as such a sovereign entity, we are purely a state creation. I think we should, give the facts to the legislature, both the good and the challenges we have, but let them deliberate and help them deliberate. But I think it sends the wrong message for us as beholden to them to use taxpayers' funding to say, go out and kill a bill. So I had that discussion with Ron, and I think the operative term should be, we should look for creative solutions with Senator Brandes and other members of the Senate and see if the House even picks up this sponsorship, which their time is ticking down, and this all might be an academic issue. So I hate to kind of throw the gauntlet out there with this board until we see what happens with the legislature and how far this bill actually progresses before we actively instruct our lobbyists to go after them and so forth, because we would be essentially attacking a sitting Florida senator from this district whose hand was very much part of creating TBARTA in the first place.
Okay, and Commissioner Long?
Yes, thank you, Chair Holton, for your very wise words. I agree with some of them, and I vehemently disagree with other parts of what you said. So as individuals, we certainly have an obligation, I think, a fiduciary obligation sitting on this board to express our concerns about the way in which this bill has been introduced and the lack of opportunity to educate the members of our delegations, all the partners involved in the Tampa Bay Regional Transit Authority, because a lot of us have worked really, really hard to get us to this place. Some of us have worked on this issue for 50 years. That's how long it's taken our region to get to a place where we can begin to speak with one voice and one message. And I think that we've got to continue to educate and advocate for regional solutions. I liked what you said about finding solutions. This morning, I passed out a response that I sent yesterday. This is me individually answering some comments that were made at a public meeting yesterday. I apologize, Harry. I don't know if you received a copy of it, and Steve and Ron, but I will make sure that you do. Responding to those comments, and they are purely my comments, and the Enabling Act is behind it, in case some of you haven't had an opportunity to read the Enabling Act. And then I take 2 pages to walk through the pros of TBARTA. I think these are good, solid arguments for why TBARTA needs to continue. And I would like to point out very strongly that TBARTA has done what the state legislature told us they wanted us to do. That was to come up with a plan, and we did that. They have never been concerned with or talked about the finances of TBARTA. And, you know, I've been working in public policy and governmental units at various levels for most of my adult life since I moved to Florida. I take it very, very seriously. And I worked really, really hard to be educated about finances, public budget, and what goes along with putting all of that together. So while I don't want to wade into the finance committee portion of our meeting today, I would like to suggest that I think we may have our head over our skis in the way we've approached our legislative package this year. And Ron will attest that I told him in the very beginning, and I told David, that I thought it was irresponsible to go back to the legislature this year and ask for appropriations. And the reason that I said that is because while we accomplished what the legislature asked us to do, we have not moved forward to put our finances totally in order. Now, you all know what we went through when we had $1.89 in the budget, and we have come a long, long way since then. But the fact of the matter is, we have not paid attention to the way in which we are spending the dollars that we have, and the fact that now the legislature has put their eyeball on that as well. So I think before we go, because Ron's answer was, well, Madam Chair, the board directed me to do it, so I have to move forward. Okay, I'll give him that, we did. That said, it's not too late to back up, and I would like to ask that you all support my initiative to withdraw our appropriation and give me from now until, you know, the end of 2022, I think if you will allow me to work with David and the staff, we can bring this agency into a financial place where the legislature will be proud to continue to support us and will be a willing partner in helping us move forward financially. But we cannot keep on doing what we've been doing and think that we're going to continue to move forward. They're not going to allow it. And frankly, from a legislative perspective, I don't blame them. So that's my 2 requests.
Chair, I'd like to respond. Any others want to respond to that? Well,
So, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I've also been involved in this from a distance for 40 years. And by the way, excuse my congestion. I have 250 oak trees on my property, and 150 pines, and they're all
In bloom.
spitting out
Completely
green
understand.
stuff right now. My truck's green, and every year about this time I get the same thing. But so the legislative authority, Senator Brandis is kind of taking a shot over the bow, so to speak. I agree 100%. You don't attack the senators and try to convince them that they should kill a bill. and I don't think that should be our focus. He's filed a bill. We do need to promote ourselves and create, for those that will listen, that this is a necessary part of the regional structure for our transit systems. Our voice needs to be louder in that lane. We can't back off and say, we'll just wait for them to get together and see how it comes out. I don't know anybody in the room that's approached. I've never approached the legislators that way. I mean, you have to help them through the ideas and the weeds and cultivate what you're doing. You have to provide them information. You've got to give them the research and the background for them to make decisions. They have a lot on their plate, so they can't get into the level of detail that we can. But if we don't promote that detail in front of them, then and leave it in the air for them to decide what's best for regional transit systems in the Tampa Bay area, I think we lose our voice. And at that point, I don't know why we're here either.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's why we're here, is to create a voice for that purpose. Hopefully somebody in the legislators, you know, in the legislation will listen. I think some of them are. I personally think it's not going anywhere, but who knows? Yeah, we wouldn't attack the senator, and we're certainly not going to attack the bill, but I think we should elevate our voices and promote ourselves even more now than normal, that we are in fact an important part of the regional transit structure.
Well, let me say something too. Did you want to say, I never think the chair should go first, so I'm letting the others speak. Did you want to?
Yeah, I did. And I've listened to all three here, and I would have to say, I've only been here a year and a half. And I truly believe that Tampa Bay needs a regional transit agency. It's desperately in need of one as we look across the bay and how we support our constituents out here, if you will. I would agree with what Cliff just mentioned. In working with the legislative people in the past, our job is to educate them. It's not to fight with them, it's to educate them and show them the value of what we have here. It's not to oppose something they're doing, it's just to make sure they have the best information as they go forward. So I believe that is our role here also. That as we move through this, if there is a desire to speak with us, then we bring the best and the brightest and the information we have to help educate them as we go along. And I'll just stop there, but I truly believe in the year and a half I've been with TBARTA that this is the agency we need in the community we serve. So.
And, you know, I would agree. And I think in Janet's letter, just glancing over it real quickly, we are one of the fastest growing regions in America. I mean, my county gave more permits last month than all of Hillsborough County. And we are starting to price ourselves out for a whole generation of people. They're now, even my own aide is having to look in Hernando County to find a place to live. And so I think it's just more and more imperative that we find the solution that we're looking for here. So personally, I would like to, I don't understand why we can't get recurring. When Miami's getting recurring, their transit authority, David, gets recurring funds. Does Orlando get recurring funds? So, so we do need to elevate our voice. And, you know, I kind of feel that they haven't come to hear it either. So I think there's fault on both sides. I think it's kind of a hasty action by Senator Brandeis. And I feel a little that I may have precipitated it, because I will confess that at my last board meeting where I always report on what's going on the boards that I sit on, because I always say I don't represent me, I represent my board. My frustration at Hillsborough County for the interpretation of what regional means. If you recall, when asked from Hillsborough County, what does regional mean? Their definition of their representative was it's the regions within Hillsborough County. And so how do you move forward when you're dealing with that kind of response? So I expressed frustration, and I think I've expressed it here. I don't know how to tiptoe around things, so sorry for that. And I wonder if that didn't precipitate something. I reached out to Senator Brandeis, but just not enough to really have a big conversation with him. I don't think it's going to go anywhere in the House. I think I expressed that rather than get away with it, I think we need to make it stronger, because the need is only going to get greater, and we're going to keep funding transportation opportunities in other communities around the country instead of our own. And so I say, Janet, I don't want to pull out our appropriation ask.
Well, can I just speak to that for 1 minute, Madam Chair?
Yeah,
I think it's misguided, and I think it's misguided because I think we would be better positioned long-term if we focused this year on policy changes within our transportation trust funds. And I've had a little bit of a conversation. I know Whit Blanton from Forward Pinellas has had the conversation with our secretary, because there are some tweaks that we could make that would allow us to dip into funds that currently we're not able to dip into. But I think before we do any of that, we have to prove that we can handle what we have. And I'm not sure that that has been done to the satisfaction of the legislators. I'll just let it.
Chairman Holton.
Thank you. And obviously, you know, from my point of view, I don't think any of us here are saying really different things. We're saying things with different emphasis. My point was that we need to give the legislature an unvarnished assessment of where we are. We need to definitely highlight our strengths, and we have many. We have accomplished the specific missions set out by the legislature, and we've done that. But we've also had an intervening crisis of all of our lifetime with COVID, which necessitates budgetary pullbacks and constraints. So we need to, in light of that, tell the legislature that we also do have some financial issues that Commissioner Long has highlighted, that going forward, we will have financial issues. Some of us think that the focus of the agency should change more towards the innovative transportation modes that we took up last year and were successful in pushing forward and got national attention for, like Ilium, you know, and the gondola and some of the other studies we did. We would be in denial if we said that certain members of this board and Hillsborough County do not seem to have signed on specifically with the RRT project. Now, that is an issue that we need to fully disclose in terms of transparency to the Florida legislature for them to make their deliberations. So my point is, yes, let's put out all the facts, not just the good ones, but the bad ones along. And I don't want to say bad, I want to say our challenges, because hopefully we can overcome them. And that was the seminal position I was trying to make, is let's have an honest dialogue to move ahead with the legislature, but not just act as if we were a private corporation or even a county or city that says we need to kill this, because we're not a sovereign entity to ourselves. We are a legislative special district. And that was my point. And to Commissioner Long's second point about the funding, I tend to agree with that position. I think that the legislature, from things I have heard from talking to members and word that I get back from the executive, is that they're concerned about how our money's being spent. And they want to see tangible accomplishments for that. Now, our retort is we have done what the legislature directed us to do, but I think we're all at a crossroads now because of COVID, because of other things. Transportation patterns in this nation are dramatically changing. People are working from home more. They're having flexi hours. They are not commuting to big cities anymore. You know, the focus seems to be in Tampa Bay, at least, people wanting to get from the airport out to the beaches. There's growing demand for on-demand transportation. So we need to be adaptable and flexible to changing times as well. So my sum and substance of what I'm suggesting is a more positive dialogue with Senator Brandis and with the legislature, as opposed to just going out there and let's try all our best to kill a bill. And that's ultimately the point I was trying to make. But I think Commissioner Long's point about maybe withdrawing the funding could have some legs to it. And I'd like Ron to comment on that, if that makes sense in terms of the overall thing we're trying to do, because I think he's in touch more with anyone on that.
Ron?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would tell you, I think trying to get appropriations with the cloud of this bill is going to make it very difficult. I think a lot of members of the delegation kind of feel like we're constantly coming forward with our hat in hand, you know, asking for dollars for obvious reasons, by the way, which you've all talked about. The Florida legislature's never given us a dedicated funding source. And Commissioner Starkey mentioned earlier about South Florida and Central Florida having regional transportation authorities that have funding, and they do get dedicated funding. They get dedicated funding because they have actual projects that they're working directly with DOT on, either operating or building, or some financial stake in it with the state. We don't have that yet. We're close. I mean, if we can get the BRT project to move forward, I think that's something that TBARTA and the region can hang their hat on at that point. And I think at that point there will be an opportunity for, I think, some type of a dedicated funding source. But to answer Chairman Holton's question is, I think it would be prudent to not move forward with an appropriations request based upon kind of where we are. I think the challenge that you'll need to answer as a board of directors is, can we do that? Can we, if we don't go after state funding this year, what's the financial implications on us as an organization from an operating standpoint moving forward? That's something that I can't answer, but I can just tell you politically, I have shared with Chairman Holton and Commissioner Long and with David as well, that I think trying to get funding this year in this political environment with the cloud of the Brandis bill hanging above us is going to make it very, very difficult.
We are, but that's a great segue into the finance committee meeting, which is supposed to be happening right now.
So, all right, well, thank you very much. And I think I'll adjourn this meeting and we'll roll into the finance meeting and we'll probably continue the same discussion. Thank you.
And
Thanks, everybody.
I'll start the finance committee meeting, and I'm going to make it brief since we've had a lengthy discussion on the legislative agenda, obviously, to say that I had, we do have money in the bank, which is a lot further along than we were a couple of years ago. There are some things that need to be addressed, and I would like the support of the members of the board to move forward with my little plan that I was up most of the night. I've been working on since the legislative meeting, Ron, to right size where we are and move forward through the end of 22. And if we can put that plan in place and you can allow me some time to come back at our next meeting with a written recommendation for you about how we will move forward, I think we can not only cover the rest of this year, but till the end of 2022. And I also want to share with you that yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, I'm so sorry, the days are moving along together right now. I had a fabulous conversation with the governmental person from Lilium. You've heard me talk about it. It's the air taxis. Hopefully you all saw the editorial that was in the paper just this last week relating to TBARTA and the effects of Senator Brandis's bill. I thought it was very well written till it got to the last two lines. And I'd like to be quick to remind you that with working on future transportation, public transportation options is not a diversion. That was a mandate from the legislature for the money we got a year ago, if you remember. So Lilium has signed a contract in Orlando. They're working on finalizing the one in downtown Tampa, and they next want to be able to move into downtown St. Petersburg and take it south into Manatee. And they all expect that to be done in the next 2 years. So the future is extraordinarily bright. Don't worry, Commissioner Starkey. They will be up in Pasco no time soon. Remember, this is the beginning, and Commissioner Bellamy, coming down to Manatee is not a bad thing because you need help down there too. So that's that on that. Also, there are conversations going on, I believe, with David, and maybe he can report on that a little later, about utilizing some of the dollars that TBARTA has now to take Miss Ava. If all of you haven't met Miss Ava, she's the newest resident in downtown St. Petersburg, the autonomous vehicle, which is wildly successful. Have you ridden it?
I have.
Isn't it fun?
I see it go by when I'm ever downtown St. Pete. I see it go by all the time and I've ridden it. It's wonderful. I
So-
wish TBARTA and TBARTA's emblem would be on there.
Well, we'll work on that because we want to take it up to Dunedin and then down through Clearwater and out to Clearwater Beach. So there's a lot going on. It's incredibly exciting if you can just, get your negative thoughts out of the way. And I think we're poised to really hit the gun in 2022 and start moving forward. I know it seems like a long time away, but it's really not. And if we do it right, I'm sure we'll be very successful. That said, one more thing. Part of the problem, and Senator Brandis brought it up in conversation, was our lack of board attendance and the inability to get things done because we can't vote. Hence, another issue, Ron, that we should be correcting in the legislature this year to untie our hands and allow us to be able to vote through Zoom. I mean, most of our governments have been doing it for a whole year because of the pandemic. So what's the big deal to let TBARTA do it? So with that said, I see Melanie's on the one. Is that Melanie? I think it's Melanie.
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Hello.
Morning. I'm sorry.
Good
to
morning.
wonder, maybe you can give, look at, we're way ahead of time, we got caught up. Maybe you can give an overview of all of what I've just said, including our monies that we have in our grant opportunities that we brought down from the.
Chair, before we go forward, can we go through the formalities of approving the prior minutes and making sure
Oh,
there's no
yes, the
public comment?
formalities, of course. Okay, do we have any public comment?
Is there a quorum?
We have a quorum. Not a board meeting.
Yeah, I guess the first one is, there's no public comment.
There is no public comment. We received none.
Okay,
The other thing would be the approval of the prior minutes, which I move to approve.
okay, thank you, Chair. Commissioner
Second.
Flowers isn't here yet. I'm hoping she will be. Okay, Melanie, thank you, Jim, for getting us back on track. I'm a little hyper.
Good morning, everyone. So just to give you an update for the year-to-date through January 2021, we did have a net surplus of $380,000. Now this surplus was $92,000 under the budget amount of $472,000. So we are under budget for both of the revenue and the expense side. And this is primarily due to the timing of the PD&E study and the technology project. The accounts payable balance at the end of January 2021 was $991,000, along with the accounts receivable balance was $1 million. So at the end of January, in a good cash position, we had $736,900 in the bank at the end of January. So as far as the cash position, we're in a wonderful position. And as far as for the grant, currently operating where our salaries and benefits it's being funded through the CARES Act. And it looks like for the forecast that it will put us through the fiscal year 2022. And that pretty much wraps up the summary for January 2021.
Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Chair, one question and comment, and it more goes to your proposal for withdrawing the budget appropriation request. Is that something I misunderstood? Do you want to defer any action by the committee or this board until you can come up with a plan? I think you said you were.
No, what my request was is support from the committee to move forward to create a plan to get us through 2022 without an appropriation from the legislature. Now, that doesn't mean that by the beginning of the next legislative session, we wouldn't be in a position to maybe go back to the legislature. But by then, we would have a very finite plan to show them how responsible we have been and how well we have been paying attention to our role of guarding the public checkbook.
But you want to wait before we formally try to withdraw the application?
No, I want to do it right now before they even start in
That's
session.
what I'm asking.
So we take that elephant right off the table. Is Ron there? He's gone. Ron got off to
Yeah,
get off.
we need board approval,
We
so
do, but I would like the support of this
that's
board.
what we're asking. You want to do a vote?
So you want the recommendation of the finance committee
Correct,
to the full
to the
committee?
board.
To the board.
And I also would like the authority to go ahead and work. I mean, I don't want to work on this plan I have without the authority of this committee and the board, because I'm not a one-man army and I can't really speak for everyone. But my request is to allow the time this next month to put a plan in place that I can bring to you, much like when we did the interlocal agreement with PSTA. Remember that?
No, I totally agree. I just want to making sure it's prudent to ask the legislature to withdraw that now before we get our plan and see what it actually says. That was my concern, because I think we can wait till session. We as tell our bill sponsors to withdraw the appropriate request after we get somewhat of a plan in place, which seemed to be a more prudent course of action to me.
And exactly, and I do believe that it would be important to direct our legislative folks to explain why, when they talk to our sponsors on the appropriation, don't just say we're withdrawing the request, but
Right.
give them the whole picture of what it is we're trying to do.
Well, that's the global
Yeah.
discussions we would have.
Madam Chair, the withdrawing something without something to put back in its place as a course of action. I agree, we should look at funding. You know, you mentioned we come every year with our hat in hand. One of the reasons is we did find ourselves fiscally responsible. I think we're disciplined. We come every year with our hat in hand because we can't get reoccurring funding. I mean, that's why we're back every year, is because we can't get reoccurring funding support in the legislative body. But I don't know why we'd want to withdraw until we understand two things. One, that we haven't been fiscally disciplined, and I haven't heard these issues that y'all are listening to. It seems like we've managed our resources pretty well.
I do not agree with that.
But I mean, that to me, it does. We certainly are, like you always say, a lot better off than we were 2 years ago.
That's true. That part is
Pointed
true.
in the right direction,
Yes.
for sure. And then the other thing I think is the more compelling issue in the background that we're not really talking about is what I've heard mostly from the legislators that will visit with me from time to time. Our member counties, we can't separate. You mentioned earlier, you know, that little, I think they're much more concerned. I don't think they have the responsibility to put us back together if we break ourselves.
Thank you.
If we're Humpty Dumpty and we fall off the wall, I don't think they have to glue us back together.
Thank you. And
But if they do, they also don't have to break us apart. So the whole question is, can we work together, all member counties, in a completely cohesive way to push transit forward? And they hear the undermining, they hear the underpins, they hear the political issues.
it's one.
And I think that's more of a problem up there. That would be, if I sat up there, that'd be a bigger problem to me than whether they could help us find reoccurring funding, because the funding we're asking for in their budget's not that significant.
Correct.
Right.
Madam Chair?
Oh, you're the chair.
Oh, yeah.
You're-
I'm the chair. Yeah, let me just respond to your comments just really quickly. Number one, there are issues with our budget where I believe as the finance chair, we have not handled responsibly, and I've tried to be very diplomatic in how I have addressed that, number one. Number two, I'm not saying take the appropriation request away without putting something else in its place. And the something else in its place would be tweaking the policy in conversation with Secretary Gwynn so that he is not blindsided by what we're trying to do. But I think he might even, if we could get our act together, I do believe that Secretary Gwynn would even support that. So it's tweaking the policy to allow us to utilize funds in a different way instead of just going back and asking for recurring funds till we get everything in order. And I'm not, you know, trying to be a negative Nelly about anybody. It's just that Florida tends to operate a little bit differently in terms of how we handle our budgets and our agency agreements, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from this latest kerfluffle and turn it into a big positive. That's all I'm saying.
Can we work on those policies and that discipline and leave our request in place? I mean, do we have to withdraw in order to move?
I think it's
Forward.
an act of good faith, Commissioner, to show the legislature that we hear them, that we're listening, that we know they have concerns, and we want to be part of the solution to address them. And I think, when you say, can we keep our region together, for crying out loud? It has taken us 50 years to get to this place. I think, hopefully we can keep it together for a few more so that we can move forward, because the naysayers really amount to one person, pretty much.
Chair, pursuant to all I've heard here, I would suggest, maybe in the form of a motion, that we undertake the study you have envisioned to see what we can do, but pinned off asking the legislature or withdrawing our appropriation request until we get that study. But that study should be done with all due haste within the next month or so before.
I'll bring it back
Session
at the
starts.
next board meeting.
Is that acceptable?
I'll second that.
Okay, no pressure or anything, but thank you. Are you okay with it, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just a little concerned to take something off.
Right, that's,
But we're putting something back on.
And if it's done simultaneously or something like that, that's different, but you do not, in my opinion, want to give them the thought that we're going to take and back and not continue to exist. And if we're taking something off the table, which was an initial request, it may give them an opportunity to think differently. Well, what's really going on down there? And
I think we're deferring that action
Right.
until we get the.
I think if we take it off the table with nothing to put in its place, it looks like a retreat.
I don't
Looks like
think
we
we should
didn't
do
need it to begin with.
right. I don't
It's
think
So it
change
has
in
to be, I'm
strategy.
agreeing with the chair's motion. I think it's on point. They just let Commissioner Long at work, so I don't have feelings either. We're all good.
But we'll get that back.
So just to understand your motion, we're tabling taking what the appropriations request off the table, am I correct?
No, we're not. No, the motion is to have a very quick and thorough study of a financial plan that could enable us to withdraw the motion, but we are not formally withdrawing the motion for the appropriation. Now, we're holding that off pending what the study or analysis shows.
I like that.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Do you want to vote on it, or you want to just?
Well, everybody has said they agreed, so are you in agreement, Commissioner Starkey? Okay, so we'll make that motion to the board.
What was it? Within this committee, I made a motion. I think there's a second. Can you call for a vote?
Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? So be it. Thank you. Okay, now, Brian, it's really hard to see that screen.
Brian,
Oh, I see him
Brian's coming in.
hurrying. He was out in the lobby.
Yes,
Is he coming in or where's he?
I
going?
saw him move. I believe he's coming in right now.
There you are. Thank you. I saw you running.
I'm wearing hats today.
Okay, here's the Ava. Miss Ava is on the agenda. Yay.
Good morning, everyone, and apologies in advance for having my back to some people here. PSTA launched its AVA autonomous shuttle demonstration in November in St. Petersburg. The demo is going to last until the end of March. The main purpose of the demo is to see how receptive people are to autonomous technology. PSTA approached TBARTA about being a funding partner on 2 future demonstrations of the AVA shuttle in downtown Dunedin and on Clearwater Beach. The demonstration in Dunedin would go from April to June. The demonstration on Clearwater Beach would go from July to September. Staff is asking for board's approval of an MOU between TBARTA and PSTA to help fund these 2 demos. TBARTA's contribution would be up to $400,000. That would come from the money, the Section 5307 funds that we receive from the Federal Transit Administration. PSTA would be responsible for covering any of the local match that's required. Supporting a project like the AVA shuttle, it is consistent with our Envision 2030 plan. Specifically, our plan calls for TBARTA to demonstrate and advance new and emerging transit technologies such as autonomous, connected, electric, and shared vehicles. We're partnering with PSTA on their Bustle and Shoulder demonstration project. In a similar way, we see the Ava Shuttle as another great opportunity for TBARTA to partner with a local operator on a project, not just a study, but a project. And Chairman Holman, you had mentioned earlier about you would love to see TBARTA's logo. Got you covered. We have that in the MOU with PSTA. So with that, we are seeking board's approval of the MOU. I believe on the line, we have Jacob Labucca from PST. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly, from PSTA. He's the project manager of the Ava Shuttle, just in case you had any specific questions you wanted to ask him about the shuttle or the demo. That'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions from the members?
Just, I spent the weekend of Super Bowl weekend down in St. Pete on our boat. And I had seen Ava a couple weeks before and didn't get the opportunity to get on it. And I looked for it. My husband and I, we wanted to take it for a ride, but I didn't see it. So was it running Super Bowl weekend?
Jason?
Good morning. I'm Jacob Labutka, project planner with PSTA. So what day specifically over the weekend was that? Was that a Saturday or? Because I can tell you that the official, sorry.
February 6th and 7th, I guess. Is that Super Bowl weekend?
6th and 7th? Okay, I can go back and look at that. So the official operating schedule for Ava is every Wednesday through Sunday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now, sometimes I think the shuttle on average does come about every 20 minutes or so. So I'm not sure how long so it could have been in between that, or if you're out there for longer. I know on occasion there has been a service interruption or two just for various reasons. So, but I can go back and check on the February 6th and 7th to see if there's anything in particular that happened on those days.
Yeah, because I was really excited to ride it, and I did a lot of walking and cycling around, and I never saw her. So just, but I'm very supportive of this, and I also think we should run it in front of Senator Brandy's house. I don't know where that is, but.
Run it where? Run it where? Where did you say?
In front of Jeff's house.
Oh.
Go pick him up. Well, I would move to approve
And
that.
take them to an undisclosed. Okay, make believe I didn't see that.
But I made a motion to approve this.
Second.
All those in favor?
Oh, I just have one quick question first.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't see.
Yeah, and again, compliments to Brian and the team for
Yeah.
doing this. I've ridden the shuttle. I see it all the time because I live downtown and it's a wonderful opportunity.
Renee.
The one question I had in terms of, especially being COVID minded and safety, I just wanted to know is the shuttle cleaned every night for disinfecting any potential germs and so forth? And what is the procedure?
Oh, I can answer that question for you. So our existing operator, Beat, they have a contract with a company that specializes in hospital cleanings. And so they actually do a thorough cleaning of the shuttle daily. There's also hand sanitizer on board for anybody to use. And we've also employed social distancing measures on board.
Great, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody good.
Good.
Everybody voted for that.
So
right?
I guess we're voting now.
Yes. So Commissioner Flowers, welcome to TBARTA. And I'm sorry that you were late. I will bring you up, or staff will bring you up at some point when we break. But in the meantime, right now, we are voting on Miss Ava, which I know since you live in downtown, you're very familiar with. And we're voting on using $400,000 from TBARTA's grant money to support the pilot project up in Dunedin and out on Clearwater Beach. Okay, but are there any opponents to this? Anybody? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Okay, do we have any other business that we haven't already discussed? No? Seeing none.
Madam Chair, just if I can offer one comment.
Of course.
This is related to your request to come up with a new plan related to the budget and bring it back to this committee and to the board as soon as possible.
Right?
As a reminder, we do not have committee or board meetings in March. That was because we scaled the number of meetings back from 12 to 9. I do realize the urgency behind this request. So if you'd like to do that in March, we would need to schedule, I guess, emergency meetings.
Well, I have never been in favor of that motion that passed, and this is one of the very good reasons why. Things happen, and this is a public board, and it's very difficult to address these issues. And as much trouble as we have getting our regularly scheduled meetings agended, I'm not quite sure how we pull one off in March, which is why I asked for the situation to be remedied immediately. Because by the time we come back in April, which is what I'm hearing you say, the session will already have been being adjourned. And it's an awful lot of work, working an appropriation through for us to, just come at the end of the whole thing and take it off. I don't know. You heard everything I had to say. I don't need to be.
So if it's your pleasure, we can work with you on scheduling a special or emergency meeting to bring that item back to the committee and to the board.
And would it be just finance, or would it be legislative and finance, or how would you, you're the attorney?
Since this request originated in the finance committee, I
It's a
think it'll come
finance
back to
committee
finance.
meeting, but I wouldn't be averse to a joint meeting in policy and finance to do this as well as an emergency board meeting.
Okay.
Because I think this is goes to the essence of what the issue
This
is.
is an emergency, but that said, we need to have at least 8 members present in order to take care of it. So. Okay, are we good? All right, other business, oh, well, I guess we just addressed that with you, David. Are you good with where we are right now? Okay, good. Future meeting subjects, I think we have our marching orders from what I just heard. So with that said, we are adjourned, and I think we have a few moments, don't we? Jennifer, do we have a few moments? Oh,
I don't.
okay.
And we'll go ahead and call to order the February policy meeting for TBARTA on 19 February. Any public comments, Jennifer?
Chris? Okay, thank you very much. I do want to welcome Commissioner Renee Flowers. Welcome. Thank you. And thank you for joining the committee.
Pleasure. It's called grandmommy duty to school, unexpected, and then an accident. So I do apologize, but I asked Darlene to call.
Well,
and
welcome.
then tried to text. So.
And we have one consent agenda, the policy committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approved. Thank you. And we'll go right into an information item, regional MPO follow-up discussion with Brian. Is Brian here?
Brian?
There he comes. There he goes. Thank you, Brian. Over to you.
I feel like Johnny Carson coming through the curtain. Is there a way we can pull? Okay, there it is. And Chris, do I control the? Okay. So good morning, Brian Passaro again. At last month's policy committee, I gave a presentation on the funding challenges that TBARTA faces to implementing any of the transit improvements that were identified in Envision 2030. That presentation led to a discussion by the committee members of having a regional MPO. And Chair McLean directed staff to come back to the committee with a strategy on how to formally begin that conversation. Next slide, please. Oh, okay, yeah, good. Before I get to that, though, I want to recap what led to that MPO discussion last month. This slide summarizes what I presented to the committee in January, namely that Envision 2030 identified both short and long-term regional transit improvements, that FDOT's participation in transit funding is limited to 50 cents on the dollar, that local match is the key that opens the door to those state funds, and that without a local match, there's a wall between TBARTA and getting access to any state funds for transit improvements. Next slide. Now, in regards to having one regional MPO, TBARTA did do a study on this. It was completed in February of 2019. It was presented to the board in April. And that study, the purpose of it was to outline a framework for improving regional coordination in the Tampa Bay region. Next slide. It had both short and long-term recommendations. So for example, for the short term, it recommending developing a single citizens advisory committee for the 3 core MPOs of Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas, creating a single regional performance-based planning process formalizing the regional long-range transportation plan, increasing the authority of the TMA leadership group, conducting one annual joint MPO meeting with state representatives invited, and developing a source of revenue for regional projects. Over the long term, the study did recommend the creation of a single MPO policy board for Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas with a multi-tiered voting structure. Next slide. Now, I need to point out, however, that part of that study included a public workshop that was hosted by the Hillsborough MPO. I watched the video of that meeting. It's on the MPO's YouTube channel. And it would be an understatement to say that there was very strong opposition to the idea of a regional MPO from the Hillsborough MPO. In fact, it was so strong that the MPO put together a counter presentation to the presentation that was given by the TBARTA study consultants. The points that they raised were as follows, and I'm not saying these are right, but these were the concerns that they raised, that with a regional MPO, the focus would be on, there would be a modal bias towards highways, that decision-making would be further removed from the citizens, that an MPO merger would exacerbate inequities to minorities, that Hillsborough MPO has a great deal of local issues to address, and that land use decisions are made at the local level. In regards to the second and third bullet, I believe what their concern was that citizens, particularly citizens from marginalized neighborhoods, that their voices would get lost or drowned out in an MPO that consisted of 3 counties. In regards to that last bullet about land use, that's an interesting one. What they're getting at here is the land use transportation connection. And even though this was raised by Hillsborough County, what comes to mind for me personally is I think of Pinellas. Fort Pinellas, for those that you may not be aware of this, they wear 2 hats. They're both the MPO, but they're also a land use planning agency. They're also the Pinellas Planning Council. If Fort Pinellas were to be dissolved and replaced with a regional MPO, that transportation land use connection would get lost within Pinellas County. Next slide. I also need to point out that the study itself did point out that governance structure is just one consideration, and that it could, but it won't automatically lead to more resources for the region. I think it would be very difficult for TBARTA to go down the path of lobbying for a regional MPO, given the very strong opposition that was voiced by Hillsborough County. But putting my personal opinion aside, I want to get back to what the main point of my presentation in January was, and that was TBARTA's funding predicament. If you go to the next slide. And that is, having one regional MPO will not change TBARTA's funding predicament. We could have a regional MPO tomorrow. It will not change the fact that TBARTA does not have a local source of revenue for transit project. And until that piece changes, until we have a local match, TBARTA will not be able to access state and federal transit funds. So with that, I'd be happy to open it up for any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a few points that Brian did not address in his remarks. And this comes from my historical perspective of being a member here for so long, as well as being involved on the Pinellas Commission. Up until 2000 and I want to say 11, 12, or 13, somewhere in that window, Pinellas County had a separate entity called the Pinellas Planning Council. It was through an act of the legislation back then that combined them, and at that place and time in our county, it was a very good thing. That was then, this is now. And I have a sheet, unfortunately it's on my desk back at home, but I have a sheet that will show you, I can bring it at our emergency meeting, Mr. Chair, that of all the 7 largest regions in our country, they all have one thing in common in terms of how they got their regional transportation system completed. And that was they had one MPO. Now, getting to that place is not done through the Florida legislature. It's done through the federal government. Is that Harry that's still on there, Steve that's still on there, or no?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm on.
You can probably speak to this a little bit. You know, that the MPOs are put in place by federal statute, and there's just a little piece of it that is at the state level, correct?
That's correct, but the governor needs to approve the creation of MPO. So the FTA would approve the creation of an MPO at the recommendation of the governor. And in conversations with the FTA that we've had about, there have been some, but not a whole lot of regional MPOs created. But in the case of a regional MPO, FTA would require the principal community approval to do that. In this case, the three counties you're talking about, the principal approval entity would be the city of Tampa. And so FTA would have to receive their approval in order to create our 3-county regional MPO in this case.
Okay, I thought it was important to point that out because an effort for us to move forward. I would have no problem at all, and I think there are several other people that wouldn't in Pinellas decoupling the planning council from the MPO, and that would be a solution for Hillsborough County to have their own planning council. It doesn't have to interfere with the MPOs. Secondly, I'd like to let you know, and you all know, I think, that the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council is made up of almost the same counties that TBARTA is. And they do a lot of transportation planning too. And they don't have naysayers on that board. So, you know, maybe there's an opportunity for PSTA and for TBARTA and the regional planning councils to somehow either merge or figure out how to work more closely together, because folks from, you know, the northern part of our region, all the way down through Manatee and Sarasota participate in the regional planning council, and we don't fight. So I think that's a great thing.
My question would be, have we ever reached out to the region?
I serve on that board.
Well, it's funny because I mentioned this to David too, when we were discussing this Brandis bill, that maybe that's an opportunity to bring two boards together, but have their own, you know, the devil's in the details. But I know we have a commissioner who's kind of pushing for the dissolution of the Regional Planning Council. I think that is also premature, but maybe we need to pivot with the way these regional boards are working as times have changed and missions have kind of evolved, that I think there is an opportunity for some efficiencies between the boards.
So what would you think of a joint meeting?
And that's interesting you just said that. I was thinking maybe it would be nice to get to know this board a little better with the entire team.
But you got to hit your.
Sorry about that. I did have that on. I think that would be an excellent idea. If we could somehow get together with this board and our board and come together and sit down and talk and see where there is a relationship or not. So. Yeah.
Chair, I would like to bolster those arguments by saying my discussions with members of the legislature and the executive, you know, want to look at efficiencies and streamlining government and consolidating government. I think, especially given the COVID crisis and the constraints that we have with the budget. So I think this would be a very fruitful discussion and kind of along the lines of the compromises and positive win-wins that we all are talking about. So I think it's a great idea. My question, and maybe, is Ron still on the line?
He was going to come back. He had to step out.
My question is, I had got wind that there was a bill in the Senate that had originated to get rid of the regional planning councils. I don't know.
Yes, there is. It's by Senator Bradley from Jacksonville.
Do we know the status of that bill, or is that?
Well, supposedly it's a leadership issue. So did I not ask, was it you that I asked?
Again, coming from my county.
I know, yeah. So
I think that this idea of working together and finding efficiencies between the two regional boards will be very well received with leadership. I think it's a step in what they, I think it's a positive evolution. And I think we should explore it. And when Ron comes back on, let's talk to him about it in our regular meeting. But maybe that's him.
Okay.
But I think it would be well received for both, the future of both boards.
Okay, so as an outcome of this discussion here, could we ask David and the staff to look at how we could come together as two boards, whether that's a joint meeting or however, and start socializing that with them? Is that a good way forward for the committee here?
At the beginning,
Okay, very good. All right, thank you. And hopefully we can have something back by the next meeting in terms of, a targeted date, if you will, and then we'll work on content of the meeting.
I'm happy to facilitate that too, Mr. Chair, since I sit on the Regional Planning Council and Catherine used to be a partner with me there. But, yeah, Commissioner Mariano from Pasco is the new chair.
Very good, very good.
Hey, Mr. Chairman. Hey, it's Harry Glenn. Can I add one comment if you have a minute?
Go ahead, Harry.
Just for context, and Steve's on here. Steve's a transportation expert. He can correct me if I get this wrong. But during the second term of President Obama's administration, they actually proposed rules. I think they went through the final rule phase, Steve, to require the creation of regional planning organizations for transportation. That would have been a requirement to access the funding dollars that FTA provides to each of the MPOs in the country. The FTA provides planning money to each of the MPOs. So they would have required the creation of regional entities because their belief was they wanted to see regional transportation initiatives. They felt they were more efficient that way. President Trump, when he came into office, actually rescinded those proposed rules or those rules to create the MPOs, and so it went away. Now, with many of the President Obama's folks coming back into the federal government and the Department of Transportation, we've heard no conversation I know of, Steve, to do that again in this administration. But again, that didn't occur, I don't think, until the second term of the Obama administration. So I don't know, Steve, if you want to comment on that, whether there's any likelihood that might come back again or not.
No, you're correct in everything you said. We have not heard anything yet, so I'd hate to speculate about that possibility.
Well, Harry and Steve, thank you for the insight. We'll definitely keep an eye on that. And so we'll, Brian, great briefing. Thank you. We have a little ways forward and we'll take that on. Okay, thank you. Item 6 is discussion and action items. And I wonder if Diane Durr is online. Is Diane here?
Who is she?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. And Diane, we hear you, but we don't see you.
She was on briefly and then she muted. Let me see if we can get her to unmute and come back. Her screen is coming up. And Diane, if you unmute, we should be good to go.
Okay, Diane.
Okay. All right. Good morning.
Good morning. And you're going to.
Sorry about that. To the chairman and board members, what you have before you today is a disadvantaged business enterprise program that we, TBARTA, have created as recipients of federal funding over $250,000. This is a federal regulation that we are required to submit. It is based on actually a 3-year program goal where we actually recommend a goal of participation. What the disadvantaged business enterprise is geared specifically for is to create a level playing field for those socially and economically disadvantaged contractors so that they would be able to participate on a level playing field with all other contractors. So we have in our program, we are recommending a 2% goal, and the goals are created basically by looking at the total number of contractors for any commodity area or any area that we will be having expending funds for projects. And we will get a ratio based on how many of those contractors are actually socially or economically disadvantaged. So using those components, we will establish a goal. And this is what we are recommending to the policy board this morning, that we will like to recommend a 2% goal based on the concept of the projects that we're actually funding and the anticipated participation as it relates to those projects. So we would like to recommend this to the policy board for recommendation to go to the governing board for approval.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Any questions by
Questions, Chair? I thank you for that presentation, Diane. Is 2% in line with kind of the national averages in terms of?
So the goal ranges from 1% to 10%, and it's based on a 3-year forecast. So we thought that based from the standpoint that some of our programs, we don't always have that many participants as it relates to disadvantaged socially or economically. So we wanted to set a goal that is somewhat lower so that, if we achieve on those goals, then it would look like a plus for us as opposed to setting goals that are higher and we are unable to achieve.
And then we can raise them higher.
Exactly.
Thanks. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and that's a great question. That was mine too, with the anticipation that we raise.
all in favor? Or I guess we should have a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, unheard. Thank you. And our last item of discussion would be transit worker proclamation. And Chris, this has been here for a while, and so we're going to try to get this done today. So, yeah, Chris.
Right. Good morning. This item was a recommendation by the TBARTA CAC to recognize each of the 5 county transit agencies with proclamations for their dedication and courage in providing essential services to their customers during the COVID-19 health emergency. And we are seeking board approval of the proclamations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Do I have a motion?
Move to support.
Okay. Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, motion approves. Yes, yeah, Commissioner.
I don't know, am I an active, I don't think I'm an active member of the policy committee. Am I, Jennifer? I am on policy. Then I would like to correct the record, please, and I am a no vote on section A, 6A.
6A? You're a no vote.
I'm a no vote, yes, sir.
Any discussion on that?
I will put it into my finance
Okay,
report.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to step 7. Any other business? Okay, future meeting subjects. I believe we have the one with the funding, of course, where we will possibly do a joint funding policy board committee meeting. Okay. And with that said and nothing heard, any last comments?
I have one comment for David. When you schedule our emergency meeting, that needs to be a reach out, not just a date. So you kind of have to poll us to make sure we have 8. It's going to be more difficult. The reoccurring ones we already got scheduled. So just encourage a reach out.
Yeah, the goal will, of course, to have a quorum.
Right.
Yes. So, okay. With that said, I'll go ahead and adjourn the policy meeting, and our next meeting is at 10, and that would be the board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got about 5 minutes, so if anyone needs to take a break. You remember the guys?
I got this.
Hey, I'm about to jump on a 10 o'clock Zoom, but I just wanted to say, I don't think they could have gone any better.
Just wait for Rich, he'll be right back. Call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the February TBARTA board meeting. Before we get the roll call, Janet, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, I'm happy to. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Call the roll, please. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
She was outside, so I think she'll be back there in a minute.
Commissioner Narvaron. I'm not sure if he's joining us or not. And Commissioner Flowers.
Here.
Secretary Gwynn.
Here.
And I do believe we have a substitution in for Nandam today. Nicole Mills.
Yes, good morning. This is Nicole Mills representing District 1.
Perfect, thank you. You can go ahead and proceed. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum.
Excuse me, Chair Halton, this
Yes.
is Commissioner Kemp. I just want to say I'm here virtually. I didn't hear my name called.
Okay, you were called, I think, but you are recognized.
Noted.
So we.
Thank you, thanks.
Present pursuant to law, we have a quorum in the building.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, before we get started with public comment, I would like to first, everyone take a moment to realize the tragedy that occurred yesterday with the passing of Deputy Magley in the line of duty, and he has a family and 2 children there. So can we all please take just a moment of silence in recognition of that horrible loss? Thank you. And we wish his family all the best. And hopefully, Janet, you said that the agencies in place to potentially help that family with.
Yes, some of you may have participated in the law enforcement and first responder annual dinner started by former Commissioner John Maroney. This Saturday night would have been the 27th annual dinner. And at the dinner last year, we decided that we would start, in honor of Commissioner Maroney, we would start a foundation and use the proceeds from our event to provide mental health for first responders and law enforcement. And this tragedy speaks loud and clear to why those dollars are so necessary, because we all rely on our police officers and our firefighters to protect us and take care of us. But not too many people think about what it does to them and to their families when they are involved in these kind of incidences. And so what makes our program so unique is that our clinicians who are working with these folks are all former law enforcement, FBI, or Homeland Security professionals who have changed their careers and are now working in this field. So I cannot tell you if I'm a little antsy and hyper today. This tragedy has struck all of us in way. I have 2 of my kids are law enforcement people, and That family is left with a 9-month-old baby and a 3-year-old little girl. So.
Thank you for those comments, and anything that we can do to help that family, I'm sure all of us will join in you in doing that.
Thank you.
Next, it's my great honor to recognize former Commissioner Karen Seal, who served on this board and has been an icon in communications and transportation matters for many, many years. David, I believe you have a proclamation to read on her behalf.
Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority, Resolution Number 2021-01, a resolution of appreciation for the service of Commissioner Karen Seal. Whereas the Tampa Bay Area Regional Transit Authority was created by the Florida Legislature to plan, finance, construct, operate, maintain, and manage multimodal systems in Hernando, Hillsborough, Manatee, Pasco, and Pinellas counties. And whereas Commissioner Seal was appointed by the Pinellas County Board of Commissioners to represent Pinellas County as one of the members of the TBARTA Governing Board, where in addition, she served as secretary during 2017. And whereas Commissioner Seal served with distinction and dedication as an alternate member of the Legislative, Finance, and Policy Committees, and also served on the Ad Hoc Executive Director Search Committee. During her tenure, she actively participated in framing the goals, direction, and programs of TBARTA. And whereas, while always championing issues of importance to Pinellas County, Commissioner Seal has exemplified the spirit of regionalism by lending her support to improving transportation and mobility throughout the 5 counties served by TBARTA, and in return, received the support of TBARTA in addressing those same issues in Pinellas County. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Governing Board that the TBARTA Governing Board hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to Commissioner Seal for her service. And further, the TBARTA Governing Board directs that this resolution be presented to Commissioner Seal in public session at the board meeting on February 19th, 2021, in recognition of her dedication and valuable service to the Tampa Bay region. Approved and adopted by the Governing Board of TBARTA on this 19th day of February 2021. Signed, Jim Holton, Chairman.
Commissioner Seal, thank you so much for your service. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would. I have lost count how many years I've served on the board, and I'm sure it's somewhere in that history, but it's been an evolving process, watching the TBARTA board change and morph. And, you know, at the very, very beginning, there was a lot of lack of trust. And I certainly think that we've worked very hard to foster trust among the region. I think the proclamation said it best, that we are better as a region. We are better to be addressing these issues as we cross county lines, because our citizens know no boundaries, and as well as our tourists. And so going forward, I applaud the technology studies. I'm looking forward to seeing some of those technologies implemented in the future, as well as the RRT. So good luck with everything, and keep your eye on making things happen. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm sure we will still be calling you for advice on many things for your great stature in this community. And thank you again for your service.
And welcome to Commissioner Flowers. She'll be a good member of the board.
Absolutely. And that's the next order of business is Commissioner Flowers. Welcome so much to TBARTA. We are looking forward to working with you and delighted to have you with us. Can you say a few words for the board, please?
Thank you so very much for allowing me to have just a few minutes to say I'm really appreciative to serve on TBARTA. I'm a native born right here in Pinellas County. I had an opportunity as a St. Petersburg City Council member to serve on PSTA for a number of years. So working with transportation services and certainly looking at regional approaches, something that I've been doing for a number of years, and very, very excited to be a part of this, and look forward to talking about where transportation takes us for the future.
Thanks so much for those comments. And again, we look forward to working with you, and hopefully we can get some of the issues that face us now resolved and move forward in a very productive fashion. Next up are the consent agenda items.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
point of order here. I believe we need to ask for public comment if we could.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we did. I thought there was no public.
There is no public comment. I just want to make sure it's on the record.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry. I thought we had asked for public. My mistake. Jennifer, could you reflect for the record, there is no public comment?
Brian is watching, but I don't, I've received where there is no one in the lobby who wants to make public comment.
All right, thank you. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. The next item is the consent agenda items, which are the prior minutes for October, November, and January. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any changes, corrections? Otherwise, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Been a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up are the discussion and action items. First is Bill Roberts with the Citizens Advisory Committee report. Bill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the TBARTA board. I'm Bill Roberts. I chair your Citizens Advisory Committee representing all of the counties represented by TBARTA. I have a brief report. We held a meeting, virtual meeting with no action items, but we did have a couple of recommendations and comments to pass along to the board. Your Citizens Advisory Committee wanted to express its support for legislation allowing for virtual quorums where that legislation may be possibly passed. We also wanted to express our support for the RFQ recently issued for the gondola project up in Clearwater. The Citizens Advisory Committee thanks the board for your action on the agenda today regarding the proclamations for transit workers. This item originated with the CAC. We think it will do a lot of good with the morale with our workers. And finally, the CAC wanted to express its support for reinstating the funding for the West Shore Interchange as a project of regional significance that we think we'd love to see budgetary considerations move back to push that back the 2 years that it was delayed. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I want to offer our support from the Citizens Advisory Committee. If the board chooses, we would be more than pleased to help advocate the positive attributes of TBARTA during the current legislative session. And if there are talking points or other information that the board would like the Citizens Advisory to support with, please feel free to let me know, and we'll see to it that that information is distributed to our members. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that report, Bill. Members, any questions for Bill?
Thank you.
Okay, none being heard, we'll move on to the Transit Management Committee report. And Kurt, you're recognized.
Kurt, you're unmuted, but we cannot hear you right now.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. Director of the, Kurt Scheibel, Director of the TMC TMA. We had a really good meeting back on February 19th. The one thing I do want to make sure I mention is that it is very well attended by all the members. We have a very good, always have a quorum, a lot of lively discussion, and a lot of people do participate from the region in this on these meetings. We did receive a very good briefing from VIA, Mr. I'm sorry, excuse me. Sorry about that. I received a meeting briefing about VIA and microtransit. VIA is a company that provides microtransit around the nation, and they gave us some very good insight on how microtransit might be working in our region. And then we got a briefing from Brian. He briefed us on various items relating to our TD Tampa Bay, regional ADA service that we've been discussing. And then Christy and Ennis gave us an update on the TD Tampa Bay and the success that we're seeing with that, with TBARTA and transporting our people around the region. Other than that, it was a very short meeting with a lot of good discussion, though. I'll answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Kurt. Members' questions? Oh, yes, Commissioner Starkey.
Yeah, I'd just like to see, was there a presentation by VIA that can be mailed out? At least I'm interested in seeing it. I know I met, we've been discussing microtransit in Pasco County, so very interested in it. And love to
I'm
see.
sure we can get the meeting, presentation sent to you, Commissioner Starkey. I'll work with TBARTA, either Chris or Brian, and see if we can get that to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are those meetings taped, or is there a way that we can go back and listen to it as well, the discussion?
I will defer to Chris on that one, but I believe they are.
They're on YouTube.
I'd love the link on that as well.
We can get you that information.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? Okay, none being heard. Thank you for that report. Next up is the RRT milestone number 3. And Brian, you're recognized for that presentation.
Brian will be in right now. Well, his presentation up.
Very timely entrance.
Okay, good morning, members of the board. My name is Brian Pissarro, Principal Planner. I'm also the TBARTA Project Manager of the RRT study. I believe Scott Pringle from WSP is also on the line with me today. This morning, I'm just going to give a brief recap of the presentation that Scott gave last month. This is an action item. We're seeking board approval on the locally preferred alternative. This slide you see here, you've seen it many times before. It's the RRT purpose, and that is all day modern mobility that provides quick, safe, reliable, frequent, and regional rapid service. So we have reached the next milestone in the study, milestone 3, which is the selection of the locally preferred alternative. You will recall that we started with 5 design alternatives. At the June board meeting, you narrowed that down to 3. So what we're asking for today is that you narrow it down to 1. And what we will do with that is we will advance that alternative into 30% design and complete the environmental analysis for. Next slide. Locally preferred alternative for the RT, it has 2 parts. There's the alignment and then there's the stations. The Federal Transit Administration, they request transit agencies to select the locally preferred alternative before they launch into the environmental analysis. Next slide. These were the 3 alternatives that you approved back in June. So alternative 1 is express bus for the 41-mile route. It would operate in mixed traffic, but it would have access to the shoulders to bypass points of congestion, what we call bustle and shoulder operations. The other 2 alternatives, 3 and 5, everything that you see in purple on the maps for alternatives 3 and 5, that is what we call freeway-based dedicated BRT lanes. The only difference between alternative 3 and 5 is the Howard Franklin Bridge. For alternative 3, the RRT would operate in tolled express lanes. For alternative 5, it would have its own dedicated lane across the Howard Franklin Bridge. Next slide. This slide compares the performance of the 3 alternatives. So going from top to bottom, it shows the number of miles of dedicated BRT lanes for the 41-mile corridor, the forecasted daily ridership, the average travel time from Pasco to downtown Tampa, as well as the average travel time from downtown St. Pete to Tampa. Really what it came down to is which one of these alternatives is going to be competitive for FTA funding. Alternative 1 does not meet the FTA's criteria for what they call fixed guideway BRT. It's doubtful whether it would even meet the criteria for what they consider corridor-based BRT. So it would not be eligible. We do not think alternative 1 would be eligible for the CIG program. Alternative 5, along with alternative 5 is the cost of adding a dedicated lane for the RT across the Howard Franklin Bridge would add approximately another $300 million on top of the project cost. That really knocks alternative 5 out of contention for what FTA considers a competitive project. And for that reason, that is why staff is recommending that we move forward with alternative 3 as the LPA and advance that to the next stage of the project. Next slide. This is a description of alternative 3. So again, it has dedicated freeway BRT lanes in all 3 counties for about 31 of the 41-mile routes. We'll use the express lanes across the Howard Franklin Bridge, and we'll have significant investment in the stations. There's 13 stations total. Of those 13, 5 are intermodal centers that are being funded by FDOT. There are only 2 stations of the 13 that we are planning to be what are called inline, meaning in the interstate. That is the station at West Shore and the station at Bird Street and Waters Avenue. The remaining 11 stations will all be offline or off of the interstate. Next slide. The median cost of alternative 3 is $353 million. That has come down. When we began the RFP study, we were closer to $455 million. So as we've done more preliminary engineering and gotten more details, the costs have come down. This slide shows the breakdown of those costs. So 27% of the $353 million would go to the stations. So here, we're making sure that the stations have all the amenities that the public and what FTA expects to see associated with premium transit. Only 2% would be for parking. 39% would be for infrastructure, and a large chunk of that 39% is really in the West Shore to downtown Tampa segment, where instead of right side running, the RRT would be actually running in the median in the transit envelope. 8% for the vehicle fleet and 24% for project reserves. Next slide. We've been working closely with the team from TB Next, and we've come up with what we think is an appropriate phasing schedule, where phase 1 would be from downtown Tampa from Pasco to downtown Tampa, phase 2 from downtown Tampa to West Shore, and phase 3 from West Shore to downtown St. Petersburg. The RRT project is closely linked with the construction schedule of TB Next, and in fact, the RRT is going to have to follow the lead of the TB Next construction schedule. Based on the latest information that we have now on that schedule, we are looking at 10 years out for when the earliest start of service would be, and that's for phase 1. Next slide. So in regards to next steps, we have met with FTA. In fact, we've met with them twice. FTA has, because of the expected delays in the TB Next construction schedule, they have strongly encouraged us to hold off on requesting entry into the capital investment grant program. However, they strongly encouraged us to complete the environmental analysis of the RRT so that it can be what's considered shovel-worthy. That's the latest buzzword in DC, to be shovel-worthy for any stimulus money that might come down the pipe. So with that being said, staff's recommendation, we are seeking approval of alternative 3 as the locally preferred alternative. That will do 2 things. That will authorize WSP to complete the environmental analysis that's required under NEPA, and it will also authorize them to complete the 30% design. Like I said, if there's any questions, either myself or Scott Pringle, who's on the line, we'll be happy to try and answer any questions you have.
Members, questions for either Scott or Brian?
Chair.
It's Commissioner Kemp.
Well, I recognize Rich McLean first, and then.
Oh, sorry, I can't always hear everything for some reason.
Right. Thank you. And good morning, Commissioner Kemp. Brian, my question to you, and it might be a loaded question. As we've watched this develop through the last year or so, the one thing in the back of my mind has always been county support. And of course, this goes through 3 major counties, Pasco, and now Hillsborough, and then of course, Pinellas, and all. And so my question to you is there county support? Because I believe without firm county support, this project would basically sit on the shelf. And so it is a loaded question. I'm under the belief that we probably don't have firm county support from Hillsborough County. And without that, again, I would say that this project, whatever we come up with, which would be option 3, would probably be dead on the table. And then my second question to you, of course, is the Express Bus program. This is something that Commissioner Kemp has mentioned in the past as an alternative, I believe, and I don't want to speak for her, but I believe that's what she said. And is there merit in relooking that? I know we have some time. This is not a hurried up project, but I know we have some time. Is there merit to look at that? So 2 questions.
Okay. In regards to the first question, unfortunately, I can't really answer since I personally have not met with elected representatives from the 3 counties. I've only met with people on the staff level. I can only share what I hear at the TBARTA meetings from the opinions expressed by the board members. In regards to the express bus option, I mean, that is one of the 3 alternatives that are up for discussion, and that if the board so wishes, that could be, I mean, there's nothing to stop the board from selecting alternative 1 as the LPA. It does get back to the fact that it would definitely not qualify for fixed guideway transit in FTA's eyes, and I think it's even questionable whether it would qualify as corridor-based BRT in FTA's eyes, because just to explain the difference between the 2. Fixed-way guideway BRT in FTA's eyes, that means that the route has, more than 50% of the route has to be in its own dedicated lane. That's what they consider fixed guideway BRT for the capital investment grant program. But they also have this other category called corridor-based BRT. You don't have to meet that 50% requirement, but FTA is still expecting that there be a significant investment in the corridor. They are looking, because the expectation is that the service will emulate rail-like service. So they are looking for things like defined stations, faster service. They're going to be looking for things like transit signal priority or queue jumps, branding. They're looking for branding of the route, frequent service. And in FTA's eyes, that means either 15-minute service all day or 10-minute service during the peak. We wanted alternative 1. I don't know if alternative 1, as it currently looks, would even qualify for that. But if it's the board's desire to go with alternative 1, we could look at trying to come up with some sort of hybrid that gets us a little bit more than just express bus.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Kemp is up first, and then Commissioner Long, and then Mayor Prisman. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Director McLean. I agree. I think that's true that there's not support for 3 in Hillsborough County. And yes, I have many times said with regards to the express bus. Now, I just want to ask this. I would ask not only the county, but, if their representatives in Congress are in support of these as well, because I think, that's also a no-go. But when you talk about FTA funding for this, if it were express bus, and then you talk about, the corridor funding program, what's the significance of that? Why, first kind of we've blown up this into these stations and what the system. Then you're saying we'd have to do 15-minute service on the expressways or in the interstate. But what's the significance of the corridor funding?
The significance, if we're not eligible to compete for funding through the capital investment grant program, then really the only way you would fund it would be the way you would fund any other transit route, which is the standard 5307 funds that transit agencies receive.
Right, but or it could be funded if, in terms of what they fund the express bus service in Miami-Dade, in Broward, and in Palm Beach counties. They fund those express bus services that are quite a lot more than us. They as well fund the CSX-like Tri-Rail for $50 million a year there without an agency like TBARTA. They also are funding Sunrail for 7 years. I know that that's ongoing. There's other, so why, those are a direct funding out of the state making a commitment to transit. So I'm not quite getting why we're not looking at that the same way that those other regions are.
Yeah, a lot of people want to comment, so I'm going to first recognize Commissioner Long, and then the mayor, I think Rich, and then I have some questions and comments too along these whole lines. So
Right, I'll have more that I want to say also.
I'm yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's let Commissioner respond now. Commissioner Long respond now, and then take this in turn, because obviously we're getting to a point of issue here that's concerning to everyone.
Yes, so I think my comments might satisfy Commissioner McLean's. We often think alike, I find him and I. And it may also satisfy your concerns, Commissioner Kemp, if you are open to them. I listened very closely at our last meeting down in Manatee when Commissioner Kemp spoke and her objections to the regional rapid transit plan that we've been talking about. So I'd like to highlight, Mr. Chair, if you would allow me, 3 comments that she made and provide you my research on the issue in response, which aligns a little bit with what Commissioner McLean has been talking about. Commissioner Kemp said, these are her words, "It doesn't make any sense as a regional project because it doesn't have regional stops and it's not fashioned that way." My response is the regional transit is actually the only premium transit project in development that has regional stops and connects the 3 major counties in our metro area. Its intermodal stations represent the region's major activity centers, highlight activity centers: Wesley Chapel, USF, downtown Tampa, West Shore, Gateway, and downtown St. Petersburg, plus several other stops that provide essential access to regional transit for residents of the 3 counties. This project is like commuter rail, but it's on rubber tires. Number 2, this is Commissioner Kemp's comment at our meeting. It all goes along our own transit lines already in Hillsborough County. We're looking at Florida Avenue for our own BRT that I would certainly hope would be submitted first before 10 years. And for Nebraska Avenue on the other side. Then they have local stops along 275 north of downtown, where somebody should get on that just to take it downtown and change seats when we already have a bus that does that as one of our top routes. The project doesn't make any sense to me still as it's done. Here's my response. This objection completely misses the point of the regional rapid transit and how it complements and reinforces local premium transit, such as, Mayor Weissman, the Sunrunner in downtown St. Pete, or the arterial BRT that is planned for Nebraska, for Florida and Nebraska avenues in Tampa. People who live along the arterial BRT route or who can access it by bus can take the BRT to the RRT, sorry for all the acronyms, and then be in Wesley Chapel, West Shore, Gateway, or downtown St. Pete. Another example, someone who lives on Nebraska, Florida arterial BRT would likely use that BRT to travel downtown Tampa or USF, which are stops on the BRT line. The RRT serves a different customer, wanting to reach different destinations in the region as it expands the ridership of HART, as well as the transit systems in Pinellas and Pasco, by providing more places to reach at a further distance. The purpose of the RRT is to make it as easy as possible for our citizens to access jobs, education, healthcare, and other activities throughout the region, not just in Hillsborough County. The third and last comment that I want to reference that Commissioner Kemp made is this. I think that the reasonable thing and the thing that would be right and serve the most people and make the most sense still would be to take express buses, to not have them paid for locally, since they would be running between counties, and to run an express bus from Pasco to Tampa to St. Pete, to the airports or whatever else you want to do. But with a regional route like that, not with a bunch of stops that are already being done with intentions to have BRT at street grade level with our top routes in Hillsborough County. In 2015, the original study that I had seen had recommended that. It was always in there, and I didn't see it until I started looking at it myself. and it would have been paid for by the state. Here's my response to that. Get ready, Commissioner Kemp. I think you might like this. While an express bus project won't accomplish the same level of reliability and speed as a regional rapid transit, I do believe that Commissioner Kemp raises a good point. I wonder if we should, to be totally thorough, include an update of the 2015 plan as one of the alternatives that we would consider. One of the principles that we should pursue as a board of TBARTA is to seek consensus when possible. And this might be one time when we can all reach consensus with Commissioner Kemp. I would be curious to see how an express bus system running in express lanes would compare to the regional rapid transit in terms of cost and ridership, and what it might offer in terms of frequency, reliability, and running time between stations. With that all said, I know it's a lot, but I would like to make a motion to ask TBARTA staff and project team to develop one additional alternative or consideration, namely an update of the 2015 plan that proposed express buses running in express lanes and connecting the 3 counties of Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas. And don't worry, Commissioner Bellamy, we'll get down to Manatee as well. My intention here is to delay our scheduled vote today until this alternative could be considered alongside the others currently under consideration. And to Commissioner Kemp's point, I do not believe that we have a consensus among our federal delegation for the other options that we are proposing here. So let's try to work to build that so we can continue moving forward.
Yeah,
Thank you.
before I entertain the motion, I'm going to let everyone speak because this is a very salient conversation, and then we'll do that. And Mayor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And following up on the commissioner's comments, I would ask if, when we're looking at that, I would be interested in knowing what is the convertibility of it down the road? If that's the direction that we go, can it then be converted down the road if it proves to be incredibly successful to what we originally were contemplating with alternative 3? And then the second question is does this potential alternative that the commissioner spoke of, would that then qualify at all for FTA? And if it doesn't, what's the impact on the budget of looking at solely state funding and other local funding, especially given that we are all concerned about losing the funding for the interchange for a couple of years?
Okay, that said, I wanted to comment. Yeah, yes, please go ahead.
Rules of order, there needs to be a second to the motion because the motion has been placed on the floor for purposes of discussion. Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, just want to make you aware that Secretary Gwynn would also like the floor.
Okay, I'll make some comments now because I was going in order here, and then we'll defer to Secretary Gwynn on that. And a lot I've heard here suggests there is not a overall overriding consensus here. And to Commissioner Kemp's point, I personally would like to know too exactly where our congressional legislative delegation falls in line with this. And again, I have not talked to her personally. I do not believe that Congresswoman Castor supports this particular alignment. I don't believe she supports the project in general. I don't know where Congressman Christ is on that, nor do I know where Congressman Villarakas is. So I think before we can make any kind of rational and reasonable choices here, we need to have a weigh-in from our Congress folks on that, to Rich's point, because I'm sensing there is a groundswell in Hillsborough County, which is the largest member county of this board, that they do not want to see this project as it is clearly articulated now move forward. And we need to flush that out very much in the open and have a dialogue about that. And to that point, I think there's other options on the table here, so we should consider, what those are. And I would support this motion to defer consideration until we can do that. Other members, Secretary Gwynn, do you wish to make some comments?
Thank you. Just briefly, I wanted to just, because it was brought up in reference to, I believe they were referring to Sunrail and to Tri-Rail and the state's involvement in that. Just want to remind one, the statute that allows us to do that type of project in Sunrail and Tri-Rail is in statute, but it is only for commuter rail. So the statute would have to be changed if it was going to be applied to a bus rapid transit or regional rapid transit type project and still have that same type of a approach from the state. And then, of course, we'd need to get approval of the legislature, because on the other two projects, they certainly even had special sessions of the legislature to set that up to make sure that the funding was there. But no matter what project we pursue, if it's going to be something that goes to FTA for potential funding, which we would need to have if we're going to go with the state match, we will need to have consensus among the entities that would participate in either the operations or funding of those. So that's still something that we need to try to get for whatever we push forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, do you have any further comments to make on this?
Well, I'll just say there's been a big shift. I wish we could have gotten in this conversation like 3 years ago, but this is a big change. I would like to just let everyone know, we do have express buses in Hillsborough County running in those areas, and we have them. That's what, you know, this RRT is no longer a one-seat ride, which it was originally set. There was this for a year, everybody saying, oh, we have to serve everybody going from St. Pete to Wesley Chapel in a one-seat ride, which never made any sense. That suddenly disappeared. In Hillsborough County, we do have express buses going from Wesley Chapel to downtown, which is just what this says that this will do already. We also have, which actually our county is totally subsidizing without help from Pasco at this time. We have had buses running for 3 years, 12 times a day, from downtown St. Pete to Gateway in St. Pete, across the Gandy Bridge to Britton Plaza to downtown Tampa. It did it in the same speed that these are purported to do. These express buses you're suggesting, we had it 12 times a day for 3 years. And I was kind of surprised when I looked over it, and I'm speaking from memory here, from the prime year, because the ridership went down from 2017 to 2018 to 2019, even though we ran it 12 times a day, which is pretty substantial. And it got about, in 2017, its prime year, about an average of 9 riders per bus all day long. And I'm sure it was subsidized, and I haven't been able to get this information out, but it was probably cost about $30 or so per trip, per rider of subsidy to help that. I was rather surprised. I think the ridership was something like, for the entire year, 12 times a day, about 45,000 or so on the biggest year. And when I saw the ferry service, which was just evenings and weekends and cost more and ran for 6 months, sometimes with issues, like no Sunday night service for a while, we actually had something like 55,000 riders in a year with much less service in 6 months on one ferry than we did with buses going 12 times a day between downtown Tampa and St. Pete, which I think was to me, that's a good express route, to just stop it at Gateway, go across Gandy, stop it at Britton Plaza, and go to Tampa. To me, that was a good premium service. And I say premium in terms of frequency for a region. It wasn't being used that substantially, which is true across the nation generally, for these long-term express routes, or they never get the ridership anywhere that the usual heavy-duty local street routes get. You know, they're just not high ridership routes in general. The second, I would just say this, I've tried forever to ask that if this route is so important between downtown St. Pete and the airport, why in the world can't we ever seem to get one? Why is a bus not doing that? I've asked about it repeatedly. It was said repeatedly it was going to happen. It has, to my knowledge, still never happened. They do have a bus from the beaches to the airport that had even lower ridership than the one I just mentioned, because I looked at that for 3 years as well. And to me, if this is a crying need, and this is what the express bus or even the RRT would do, because it was no longer going to be a 1-seat ride, it was going to be like a 3-seat ride. Why wouldn't we just be doing that? What I'm trying to say is Hillsborough County is already doing all these things that we're talking about here as express routes between major centers and doing it. You know, we're doing that service, but I can't see that St. Pete is, and at this time, Pasco is, as I said, not contributing to that express bus, but we're hitting all the things that they're talking about already. So I'm just trying to clarify that for the group, knowing this service and watching it, and I just didn't think it made sense to invest a lot in, you know, I don't know, these, what they were calling multimodal centers, but turned out to be parking garages, putting a catwalk across, you know, I-275 at West Shore for people to ride a bus in the center of the road. Things like to me, it wasn't TOD, it wasn't valuable at the racetrack dog park area, and it didn't serve people well in that community. And I think that's very much the sentiment here. But also hearing Secretary Gwen talk about commuter rail and how there is support for that, and they get that. And of course, I've been talking about the CSX option. Initially, it was said CSX would take 10 years and this would be 5 years. Turns out this will be at least 10 years. And in Sunrail, they were able to do it 8 years, but 3 years was contract negotiations that working out a plan with the state that, you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I'm just going to put all that out there. You know, I could go on for a long time with my critique of the RRT, but I won't bother. I appreciate the shift. You know, I still think that any services offered, any support offered on this system should be given directly to HART or PSTA or, you know, in Pasco, not to create another bus system. That doesn't make sense to me as a competitive bus system. So I'll just leave it at that, just kind of some analysis of all this, and appreciate the shift in sentiment, because I think it's, I don't think this would go anywhere otherwise.
Commissioner Flowers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Long, I am going to support what you're putting here on the floor, but I just want to share a few points, salient points. They may be repetitive for some of you, so I do apologize if in fact they are. I believe the whole purpose for regional transportation is to bring individuals the opportunity to be able to access services across county lines. We could sit here and talk all day about what Hillsborough does. PSTA has always provided routes going over to Hillsborough County on the 300X and others to downtown. Even when I served on PSTA for a number of years, that was one of our primary services, to include establishing hubs off of the interstate of the exit for 22nd Avenue, so persons could park, catch the bus and ride. Several components of that dealt with taking cars off of the road, so we're looking at some climate issues. It also addressed individuals' need to find employment in places other than where you live. And we see a number of larger corporations that are expanding their services and their brand, and they're moving further out because why? The property is much less expensive, and they're able to create larger employment hubs and hire Tampa Bay Times is moving their paper facility out to Lakeland. So those individuals that would normally just travel right into downtown St. Petersburg or off of 34th Street and 13th Avenue will now have to either find a way over to Lakeland or look for employment. So my intent for serving on this committee is to look holistically at how we're providing opportunities for individuals throughout the region, not just Pinellas County. And that region does in fact include Pinellas County and moving up the I-4 corridor, hopefully even going past Hillsborough County, Polk County and Pasco County. Because we have to look at employment trends. And we're supposed to be looking at what it will take to keep our communities thriving and growing. And quite frankly, we won't be able to do that if we continue to talk about what we're doing in our individual county and not what we're doing regionally. We have lost so much time because, and I'm not hashing up old stuff, but we had an opportunity for light rail. We lost that opportunity. It put us back years. And so now we're playing catch up to where other communities throughout the United States of America have already excelled. Go look at Salt Lake City. We were there for a National League of Cities conference. Electric rail, fabulous, connecting to commuter lines that took people either east or west and made those stops. And those runs were such that you weren't late to work, you could get somewhere on time, you know, and just be able to do some of those things. So as we talk about whether it is an express bus service, whether it is connecting to commuter hubs, we need to just keep in mind, I would hope, okay, let me not say need, we're all adults. I would hope that our primary focus is this is a organization is focused on the regional needs, not our individual needs. And that's what we should be doing, representing. Lastly, I think it would be well for us to continue to have those types of conversations with Congress members, Chris Castor, and even to, and Gus Bilirakis, Congressman Bilirakis, thank you. And even to maybe have conversations with the new Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Buttigieg, because even through those efforts, a regionalization approach is going to be what's required to move us forward. And if we don't do something now, the cost will only escalate down the line and we will find ourselves further and further behind. And we're talking about people who are not making a whole lot of money that would love an opportunity to be able to access employment that will be able to give them that in districts that aren't coming to our local community. So I just kind of wanted to share that because we don't need to keep rehashing. We need to talk about moving forward. I would love to see us not keep rehashing. I would love to see us talk about moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for those great comments. Other members, Commissioner Starkey.
Well, I love your comments. And I would add not only about the regional employment, but I would add regional attractors, the Bucks games, the airport, the port of Tampa, downtown St. Pete. So it's not only about employment, but it's about having a mobile community that doesn't have to have multiple cars sitting in their garage, but has other methods of family members to move around and our tourists. So it's a whole big picture that I agree if we don't act, we will slip behind and it'll get more and more expensive. I am going to Salt Lake Friday. Actually, my son's company just bought the town. Well, they're going to finish building that town that rail goes out to. I think it's called Morningside. Yeah. So so I know exactly what you're speaking of, and I ride transit everywhere I go when I travel, and I can't do it here. So welcome to the committee. Welcome to the board. I'm very glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Other members, any other comments or questions? Janet, you made the motion, I believe.
I did, and I'd like to.
Commissioner, Director Holton, I just have one more comment.
Yes.
I appreciate all the comments that have been made, and I appreciate what Commissioner Flowers said. I just like to clarify that when I talk about a route from downtown St. Pete to the airport in Tampa, That's exactly what the RRT would do. It's not any different. So I am talking about regional routes. When I talk about Tampa to St. Pete or back and forth, it's the exact same thing as our local routes do in the regional area as well. Wesley Chapel to downtown. At this point, the proposal that was there is no different than what I'm talking about and what local service is doing or not doing. So I just want to be clear that there isn't any proposal out there to go from any longer, to go from, St. Pete to, I don't know, Wesley Chapel, or that isn't served, even though they're recognized as regional. I think the conversation is getting a little confused, but maybe we can sort that out in the future. I just want to be clear.
Please call the question.
Yeah, I am, could you restate the motion, please, and then second, so we've been a long time.
But my motion is for, how did I say that? Just a second. I wrote it down so I wouldn't be drone on. Okay, my motion is to ask the TBARTA staff and the project team to develop one additional alternative or consideration, namely an update of the 2015 plan that proposed express buses running in express lanes and connecting the 3 counties of Pasco, Hillsborough, and Pinellas. That's my motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is there a second? Yes, discussion, Mayor Kreisman.
Just a quick question. I want to make sure that includes the staff looking at the convertibility of it.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Jennifer, could you call the roll, please? Yes.
Cliff Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman,
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
Commissioner Kemp,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Flowers.
Yes.
Please, yeah.
All of us.
Yes, please, staff, please get that to everyone as soon as possible.
Motion does pass 9-0.
Thank you. Okay, good discussion. We're moving on now to the Legislative Committee subreport, and Commissioners Long and Starkey are both recognized to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had our meeting this morning. We had some wonderful reports from our various lobbyists. At this time, I think I want to turn it over to our federal lobbyists to discuss some activity that's happening up in Washington. Good morning. Are you on? I see you. Morning.
Good morning. I think Steve's still on too. Hi, this is Harry Glenn. We just this morning we briefed the legislative committee on what's going on currently in Washington. The major issue right now is the House and the Senate are trying to expedite the passage of the 5th COVID relief package. It's a $1.9 trillion package that includes $30 billion for U.S. Public transit agencies. 9 House committees worked on their various sections of the bill last week and reported made their recommendations to the House Budget Committee. House Budget Committee will take that up on Monday at 1 o'clock. They're going to compile all the recommendations of the 9 committees into one large, what they call a reconciliation bill that will go to a full House vote mid to late next week, with the goal being to get it to the Senate the first week in March. The Senate's going to skip the committee process and to expedite the consideration and go straight to the Senate floor. There are a couple of parliamentary issues that really don't involve transit that they'll have to deal with. Any changes the Senate makes, then we'll have to go back to the House for final approval before the bill goes to the president. So there is that. But they do expect to have this done by the first or second week in March. They're trying to be done by March 14th, which is when the enhanced unemployment benefits expire. They need to pass this bill to continue those without interruption. The other issue from this week is there continues to be a push, more optimistic than previously thought, to get congressional earmarked spending authority back before the Congress. That 11 years ago, Congress suspended the process of earmarking spending for local projects, much like the state legislature continues to do. It's pretty clear that that's going to come back now. We expect to see some guidance. Steve had some information just while we were on the call from the committee staff that they expect to see something next week on guidance on how that will work. So at some point that may be beneficial as you get projects moving down the pipeline. Earmark spending may be a way to jumpstart some of these projects. And we'll work with Steve sent David a paper earlier this week that kind of outlines the kinds of information you'll need to be considered for an earmark project. The House Appropriations Committee is going to be delayed in working, and the Senate Appropriations Committee on working on their bills this year. We don't expect the president's budget to come out until the first week in May or possibly late April. But that'll really substantially, that's about 3 months behind schedule. So that'll really slow down the beginning of the appropriations process. But it also gives us more time to prepare for that. And then I'm going to pass over to Steve. He can talk to you about post-COVID legislation and what we see up next in the House and the Senate.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Two things I'd like to touch on quickly are, once Congress does finish work on the American Rescue Plan, the COVID relief bill that Harry discussed, that we expect that President Biden will quickly turn to an infrastructure bill, as he's been calling the Build Back Better proposal. There are no specifics to it yet, but we're beginning to hear that he is talking to members of Congress about something that could cost between $2 and $4 trillion. If it's a higher level spending bill, then it probably would be offset with some tax increases, which would make it much more controversial in this environment. But that bill will be dominating, I think, congressional action later this year. It is a bill, it will include the multi-year surface transportation bill, which does include a significant increase in funding for bus programs. If it's the same bill as the House passed last year. The House bill last year had $105 billion over 5 years for public transport. And again, many significant increases in buses and making it focused on ridership and service frequency. In addition to this infrastructure bill, which we obviously will have time to talk about in the future, DOT did issue its first notice of funding opportunity, its first grant opportunity. And I just wanted to highlight some of the issues that they are focusing on in their grant applications, because while TBARTA may not apply for this particular grant, it does indicate where they are taking their grant programs. And they're focused on jobs, they're focused on safety, obviously, technology and innovation, but also climate change and racial equality. So there are going to be some opportunities in that kind of framework for TBARTA to compete effectively over the next several years. And one last thing I should say, Harry mentioned the possible return of earmarks. That is something that we will be working with David and the staff on for a multi-year surface transportation bill as well, because in the past, that was a bill that was also earmarked. And the advantage of that is it's not just a one-year earmark, it's a multi-year earmark. So it could be funding for a project spread out over 5 years. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you and we're happy to answer any questions.
Well, that's very exciting. Okay, we're going to get Ron's update, and then I have a thought for the rest of the discussion that we had concerning our Senate bill. In my mind, that kind of rolls into our policy discussion. I'd like to move that discussion after Ron makes his presentation into the broader discussion we had under policy concerning the Regional Planning Council. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ron.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, board members. Quick update. As you all know, last Friday we had an emergency legislative meeting. Based upon that meeting, you instructed me to, with your lobby team, go meet with Senator Brandis and other BALD members, Bay Area Legislative Delegation members. We met with Senator Brandis on, I believe, Wednesday. Commissioner Long was a part of that meeting. You know, obviously, we had a lengthy discussion about why TBARTA is relevant, what we've been doing over the last 2 years. Asked them, you know, what can we do differently if we need to make changes in the Enabling Act, really trying to find solutions. The bottom line is he wants to move forward with the bill as is right now. We have talked to a number of other BALD members as well. I will tell you, we already had the meeting scheduled, the day set aside for David to meet with a bunch of the delegation members. I will tell you, and David can pipe in, I know many of the members were very surprised that a bill had been filed to repeal TBARTA, and I will tell you, I think there was not a lot of support, but it's obviously very early in the process. Also, from our meeting last Friday, I believe there was resolutions that were being done that Chris was working on, and we gave some input on that was shared with each of the respective counties for the county commissions to talk about their support of TBARTA. I think we've shared some talking points with the board as well. And a couple of points on the Senator Brandis bill. Number one, it was referenced this week, by the way, in the Florida Senate. They referenced the bill. As you know, it was filed last week. I think it was referenced yesterday. It has 3 committees of reference: transportation, TED appropriations, and full appropes. That's normal. That's exactly what I thought that bill would probably get. There is no House bill sponsor. As you all know, you have to have a House and Senate bill. Right now, there is not a House bill. We have talked to a few House members that have been approached, and nobody has made any commitments to date to move forward, to be able to move forward with that. So at this point, we'll continue to meet with very elected delegation members to make sure they're updated, as we do every year, by the way. Every year we meet with the members to let them know what TBARTA is working on and give them an update. David's done that for the last 2 years. One piece of good news, I know we're really focusing on the bill filed by Senator Brandis. Our bill by Senator Roussan, which is our Enabling Act bill, which the board instructed us to move forward with again, did pass on a unanimous vote out of the Senate Transportation Committee meeting this week. So there was some good news there, and we expect the House bill to probably move the first week of session. So pause there and see if any members have any questions or comments.
Thank you for that. Now you want to move this into the overall discussion?
Yeah, because I
the
think
next
it's
steps.
well, I think we'd end up mushing it together anyway. So I just suggest we hold off on any discussion about this Senate bill into ideas that we brought forward under the policy.
I agree with that, Madam Chair, with one exception. If we could, please, if I could have a point of order, I would appreciate it. Sure. Okay.
You have to address that to me.
Oh, okay, then you heard me. Can I?
Yeah, of
please?
course.
Okay, thank you. This relates to the legislative report that Ron just made. And I think you all have at your tables a letter that I wrote to the chair of the St. Pete City Council in response to comments that were made about my comments that impugned my representation of TBARTA. And I would like that to be made part of the record. Jennifer, if possible, please, because I believe that one of the comments that Senator Brandis made was that there were many members of this board who totally agreed with him that this agency should be dissolved. And so to that, I would like to ask for a vote of confidence in the TBARTA agency moving forward, because from the world I have always lived in, if you serve on a board, you have a fiduciary responsibility to support the mission, goals, and objectives of that board. If you cannot agree to do that, then you have no business being on this board, in my opinion.
I take a little bit of an issue with that. I don't think everyone on this board has approved a project. We're moving forward with a project. I don't think asking the board to say we affirm our commitment to the board is really an appropriate motion at this time in the discussions of a bill pending before the legislature. I think that we can, as I said, operate with our strengths, our weaknesses, and present those things. But I don't see that this does anything to advance any cause. It's very similar to what happened in St. Petersburg there when there was a motion to enforce the law. The law is the law. We have already ruled on what we are doing here. We are moving forward. I think it serves no purpose other than politics to simply say we all support TBARTA.
But
What we need to do is work out with the legislature what we want to do with the bill and not be taking pot shots at Senator Brandis or this or that or saying we support.
But it was his comment, Mr. Chair. Don't you want to educate?
I don't know what his comment was. I didn't hear it.
Well, Ron was there.
Your comments are honestly hearsay to what he said. I mean,
Ron?
That's not the point. Anyone could say that. What my point is, it's not the proper motion for this board to be considering at this time to say we simply support TBARTA. It's not in order, I don't believe. I mean, if you want to address something to the specific bill and how we move forward with that, that's an addition. But just to go around and ask people if they support the mission of TBARTA, which everyone has previously voted over and over again that we have, yeah, I think is gratuitous and unnecessary. And analogous to saying, let's support the law.
All right, well, I asked for the motion, and if we don't get a second, I guess it dies.
Mayor Price.
Excuse me, would it be more appropriate, Mr. Chairman, in your view, if we, as a board, took a position of one way or the other, either in favor or in opposition to the pending legislation?
Again, I think the point I wanted to make was we should be talking about consensus building and a win-win situation and negotiating for positive results with the legislature, because we are a legislatively created board, unlike a city or a county, which is grounded in the Constitution. We are a legislative creation, a special district, and we owe our allegiance to the legislature. I don't think we should be taking a position to kill a bill or oppose a bill. We should be talking about what we can do to make the bill work.
And I would agree with you, but for the fact, the only question I've got is if this bill passes, this board doesn't exist. And so if we don't take a position and that we oppose the bill, then there is no compromise and there is no collaboration, because we won't exist, so we'll have no one to collaborate.
Well, I think they know by now that obviously we have issues with the bill and we want the bill changed, but I just personally do not think it's appropriate for a legislatively created body to tell the legislature we oppose a bill. We work with them and present the unvarnished facts, good and bad, about what the strengths and the weaknesses are of this agency, and work with them to come up with a solution. But going out there and opposing a bill is something that I would not support. Just saying that. That is not to say that I desperately do want to find a solution to move forward for this board, but I think it sets a very poor example in telling the Florida legislature that we, as a creation of them and using taxpayers' dollars, are deploying our lobbyists to go say, kill a bill. I just don't see the appropriateness of that. Commissioner Stark.
Well, there's one thing. From what we're hearing, what I've heard this morning, maybe, just because one person in the legislature feels one way doesn't mean they all do. And if there's no House sponsor, maybe, maybe we take this just as a big shot across the bow for some things that we need to pay attention to. And I think that leads to the discussion that we're going to have about the Regional Planning Council and TBARTA, which as an elected official and a steward of the public's money, I think we need to look for efficiencies and grow and change as circumstances arise. And I think the discussion that we're going to have about having a meeting with the Regional Planning Council and TBARTA kind of shows that we are also thinking about being good stewards, all of us being good stewards of the public's money, and maybe being creative, and we'll have a good report for
And that shows the legislature and the governor's office that we are actually doing stuff rather than just sitting here making resolutions to oppose or approve something.
Right,
I think we're
and no doubt that
demonstrating
it was not good for them to hear. Even my husband said something that we haven't been able to take a vote since October. Yeah, we have some public relations work to do and some good workings to do with other elected officials in the region. And frankly, I think we should be getting our congressmen, we should be meeting with our congressmen as well, letting them know what we're doing. So.
Correct, and these.
Not just our local elected delegates.
Yeah, and these major votes were not noticed on the agenda and they're come up from the floor, generated from the floor. I don't know that they're specifically germane to a specific issue. So again, I don't think either of those motions is timely at this juncture, given the context of what we've been talking about.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So on my drive down here today, I was thinking to myself that Hillsborough and Pinellas County are gonna blow up again, and everything that we've been working on is going down the tubes, and there's not gonna be anything to show for my time on TBARTA. Then I listened to Commissioner Long and Commissioner Kemp find a compromise. And then I listened to the board discuss a positive resolution moving forward to address why we are significant. And then I listened to the positive feedback from the board about how we should go at our legislators to make them believe in us. And now I'm back to where I started, in a good place. So we don't need to attack anything. We're go forward kind of people. We need to come up with our plan, work on it. I love some of the things y'all have already worked out today between the two biggest hitters on the board, you know, politically. And I think we have a way to move forward. So I think we ought to stick with it. I think our power vote was good. I liked it. Gives me some confidence and, you know, a reason to keep on believing.
Yeah, everything I've heard thus far is positive, and there's no need to take shots at the legislature or a sitting senator who is from this area or anyone. Let's just work with the delegate, you know, our delegation and the legislature and the executive and DOT to move forward and demonstrate by action, not by words. Reggie?
Actually, see.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two points. I think what I really was hearing from Commissioner Long was that a comment that was not factually based is what is being utilized to further the position that TBARTA is not relevant. And so that's a concern for her as it relates to her reputation and her service, because that's what's being used to address. And as a result of what the senator said, now you have a local chair of St. Petersburg City Council using that same sentiment. So I think that's her concern. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I do understand her desire to want to clarify that. Mr. Manuel, your comments were so heartwarming that you found belief again. Sometimes we just have to hold on for a minute or two to find belief again. I want to make just one point though, and it may not be a point agreed upon. Yes, this commission, this body was formalized by one individual who's no longer in the state legislature for a specific purpose. So our presence and the work that we do should be based on the mission of the organization, not the allegiance to the body that formed the organization. We were not formed to always agree, but we were formed to do the work. And there are going to be times when our positions may be totally opposite of what the state legislature is. So I just wanted to share that sentiment, that I believe that's what you were saying, or what you're asking is that that be cleared up, because now that conversation went on television yesterday and it's out.
It went on television. It has been addressed publicly in our legislative committee emergency meeting we had last Friday, and Mr. Ron Pierce was there as well, and so was David. And you, Mr. Chair, are the one that was most maligned by the comments made with regard to your support. So all I am.
Well, I don't feel maligned because I had a productive dialogue. I understand you with this letter, which I'm happy to put in the record, and you have defended yourself. And I think that should be a matter of public record.
Okay.
So what Mr. Montanari said, but I don't see that has anything to do with conversations that are not officially in the record concerning Senator Brandis.
Look, I made a motion. There has been no second. If there's no second, Madam Chair Starkey over there, I would suggest that we move on. Oh, I'm sorry. I think
Commissioner Bellamy?
Yeah, I'm probably the one that have the least voice because of the impact that TBARTA has in Manatee County. But after I talked to Senator Galvano, he expressed, you know, his concern about what we're all talking about. And obviously I support him in the things in for the motion that Commissioner Long put forth. I think what she's attempting to put forth is strength from within, and to show the legislative body, you know, that we are at least on one accord. And me, honestly, I don't have a problem with that, but I always listen to the surrounding counties, because again, Manatee County is least, at this point, least likely to be impacted by, probably 99% of decisions that are being made. But I think this is an opportunity to show strength within if we support a motion. I don't normally second motions because of the impact that it will have on different counties and everything like that. But this is I don't think it's hurtful, but I'm not as seasoned as you, Mr. Chair.
I don't know about that, but my point is I don't think it's needed, because obviously we have voted continuously to move forward a project, multiple projects. We've done that. So all of a sudden to say we support TBARTA is a gratuitous act. Again, I analogize to this commissioner in the city of St. Pete saying, let's file a motion to say that we support law enforcement. Well, you're obligated to have law enforcement. We're doing already by our actions what that I don't see that we need a vote of confidence in anything. I just think it's a very, very gratuitous suggestion, and I think it's aimed at a political comment, which our effort should be more towards consensus building, working together, and finding a solution with this senator and other senators and members of the legislature, rather than trying to provoke them.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I think my position is, a documented within support for the record is basically what I think she was striving for. And me personally, where we are in listening to the current tone and the political climate about this particular subject, a for the record statement may be needed at this point, in my opinion.
Mr. Long, could you please restate your motion?
In light of the conversation that we had with Senator Brandis, who specifically said he had the support of our chair and many other members of the board. I don't see that here today, and I was merely asking for confirmation that for whatever reason, Senator Brandis misunderstood whatever it was that was said to him. And I don't see that, frankly, Mr. Chair, as any political statement. It's merely a factual.
I've had a positive conversation with Senator Brandis for many, many years about TBARTA, and
Well,
there are things about TBARTA that I don't support about it. So I don't want to be saying that I don't know what he said because I wasn't there. And I will just tell you that this is precisely why in a court or any administrative hearing, hearsay is not admissible.
Can I make a suggestion? I think it was with me. To just restate your motion. Don't put anyone's name around it. Just make a general motion, because we did this at my MPO, that we are wanting, actually, I can't remember if that was.
You say you want to support, everyone here supports the mission of TBARTA as articulated.
Yeah, that's exactly, I will second that motion if you restate it.
That's exactly what I originally
Just state that
said.
simply, and I think you'll.
My motion is that we, as the TBARTA board, affirm that we support the mission, the goals, and the objectives of TBARTA.
Second.
Which includes the legislative intent.
Well, we haven't got to them.
I mean, that's part of our mission statement.
The mission statement as stated, which
Yeah.
I think we already do, but that motion, I don't have
I am fine with that, because if this goes away, we're in trouble. There's not another body that can bring the 3 counties and 5 counties together to discuss this. Now, we're going to morph into this idea we have, I think, with the Regional Planning Council. For those of you who weren't listening, I'm very excited for you to hear, because I think it's very proactive and progressive. But I think it's important that we let everyone know that having a body to discuss regional transit is very important, or there will be no federal money, and we can all try and do it piecemeal, which is going to take forever.
And that's a fabulous opportunity for education, because our good senator believes that we can do it, to which I said, well, if we could, we would have done it 50 years
Yeah,
ago.
no,
So
yeah.
he doesn't apparently know
Well,
that. And
I haven't talked to him. I haven't heard him speak to us. I don't know. I just know, with my short time on this board, how important it is for us to work regionally. I see it when I travel in other areas, what they've been able to accomplish. And I'm hoping in my little time as a servant of the public, I can help move that mission forward so that my children and my grandchildren, when they come here, can move around seamlessly and live in a region that is with the times and not so far behind as other big MSAs in the country.
I like the analogy of a mission because I think we are on a mission. My point is, I think we all support the mission and I can support that motion.
Yeah.
I cannot support that we're definitely on the right course on mission now and that we don't need significant course adjustments
We
to
do.
carry out that mission.
To be determined.
To be
right?
determined, but that goes to the point of working with the legislature and seeing what the outcome is, but not saying we want to kill a bill or support a bill or whatever, but just saying we support our mission and let's put all the facts out there transparently for the legislature to deliberate and vote on. That's my,
so it looks like we have a win-win.
sounds like, so your motion is to support the goals and
No, she said to support the mission of TBARTA.
as articulated in our mission statement, correct?
Correct.
That we affirmed that we are on an important mission here and
Well,
how we get there, it's going to go like this maybe, but we're moving forward to solve a problem.
Yes,
so the mission is
Because
this
who else
board
can solve it?
supports the mission statement of
Yeah.
TBARTA.
yes.
Is there a second?
She seconded.
I second.
I don't think,
I second.
I don't think we had a vote on it though, but Jennifer, please call the roll. Yeah, Renee, our council has asked that we call the roll for these things because of some of the articulation with people hearing.
Jim Holton,
Yes.
Cliff Manuel,
Yeah.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman.
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
Commissioner Kemp,
Not there.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Flowers.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 8-0.
Legislative, and we'll discuss more of this issue in the policy, I think. So I'll relinquish the mic.
So next up is finance and we'll get that report.
Yes, and I'm going to be brief to allow more conversation on the next piece that Commissioner Starkey wants to move forward. We had a great finance committee meeting. The good news is we have monies in the bank. I did make a request that I be allowed and have the support of our finance committee to move forward to craft a plan with David to get us to a place where we don't have to come every year to the state for dollars for operations and salaries and things like that. And so I'll be working on that plan and I'll be bringing it back to you in writing at whenever we meet in April. That's the end of my report, Mr. Chair.
Any, David, any comments for that?
No.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I believe we have an action item on the commuter services van pool proposal. I think that's may need a vote.
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry, Chris. I totally forgot about that. And to that action item, let me get to my finance paperwork here. You're talking about the one that Diane Dorr brought forward?
No, I can brief you if I could have the floor for a moment on that. As
Okay.
This is a recommendation that was approved by the Finance Committee, I believe, in our last meeting to approve a purchase order with Clear Channel Outdoor for $101,500 to market van pool services in Hillsborough County. I did present this in November, but I'll briefly give a synopsis since we have some new board members here. As FDOT's District 7 provider of commuter services, TBARTA is the recipient of $350,000 in a grant to support van pooling in Hillsborough County. As noted in this grant agreement, The funds will be used specifically to maintain and expand TBARTA's regional van pool program. 75% of that, total of $262,000, is specifically designated for marketing through the employer and community outreach portion of this grant. What I want to emphasize to the board today is that these are grant-specific dollars to promote and build the regional van pool service. They are not general service dollars that can be reappropriated anywhere else. They don't come from the state or a local match. So to best meet these grants marketing objectives, we are proposing a billboard and digital media campaign. We did solicit proposals from 3 vendors, and the superior proposal came from Clear Channel Outdoor. So this requires approval by the board to move forward because it is a $101,500 expenditure that comes specifically from our G1467 grant.
Members' questions? Been a motion and a second. Further discussion? Jennifer, call the roll, please. Yes?
Cliff Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman,
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
is Commissioner Kent back?
She is not.
Commissioner Starkey? Yes. And Commissioner Flowers?
Yes.
Okay, motion does pass.
And lastly, we had Brian Pissarro made a brief presentation on using some of our monies. PSTA had asked for us to use some of our monies to take Miss Ava up to our autonomous vehicle pilot project up to Dunedin and over on Clearwater Beach. And that passed unanimously at the Finance Committee. So I would ask the board for a motion to approve it here.
Second.
All those in favor, please.
There's been a motion. Second, I'll call for a vote.
I just said all those in favor.
Oh, no, I have to call for the vote now. You're giving the report
Oh,
because I'm
knock yourself out. Go ahead.
the chair of this. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, motion second. Call the roll, please.
Jim Holton,
Yes.
Cliff Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman.
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey. Yes. And Commissioner Flowers.
Yes.
Okay, motion does pass.
Now, anything further in finance then, Janet?
No, that's the end of the report. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
So next up is the policy committee report and Rich, with that in mind of segueing in from the prior legislative.
Thank you very much, Chair. Is Chris J there by chance?
I'm here.
Okay, Chris, if we can go ahead with the, oh, I'm sorry. It's
You and Chris, do you not just, I believe?
Yes, Transit Worker Proclamation.
And Chris was online. I don't see him at this moment. Oh, here he is. He's coming back online now.
Great.
He'll be here in a minute.
I'm here. As Bill Roberts mentioned earlier, this item was a recommendation by the TBARTA CAC to recognize each of the 5 county transit agencies with proclamations for their dedication and courage, providing essential services to their customers during the COVID health emergency. We're seeking board approval for these proclamations.
And just for clarification, it'd be for all 5 counties. So
That's correct.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Jennifer, you want to take?
So let me, I'm sorry.
Okay, go.
We have a little, always when I get a committee report, then I have to, by law, conduct the actual vote. You know,
Well, that's not how it works on the rest of the boards that I serve on, which is why I always get confused a little bit. So I'm trying to.
Okay.
I'm trying to learn your way, but that's not how all the other boards I.
I think the chair of the actual board has to do that.
Over to you, Chair.
That was our briefing with Alan, but I'm always open to suggestions, and it seems like we all are.
If we could just repeat to who motioned and who seconded, that would be great.
Motion second, any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Jim Holton,
Yes?
Cliff Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman.
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey.
Yes.
And Commissioner Flowers. Great, motion passes.
Thank you, Chair. Our next topic of discussion was the DBE, which is the disadvantaged business enterprise public program and goals. I don't know if Diane is still on board with us. Okay, Diane?
I'm here.
Recognized.
Yes, good morning to the board chairman and board members. Again, we have before us today
Little trouble here.
Diane, you may want to, I don't know if you can turn your speaker down or don't mute your mic. Turn your speaker down, that might help.
Hold on.
Try now. Did we lose her altogether?
Okay, all right, is that good?
Marginal, if you'd like to proceed.
Okay, so TBARTA has prepared the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, which is a requirement for all agencies receiving $250,000 or more from the government. It is a federal regulation and requires us to prepare this program. So what we have done is we have prepared it, and we have also recommended a 2% goal for socially and economically disadvantaged contractors to participate in the program. So the goal ranges are anywhere from 1% to 10%. We kind of stuck, we are recommending a 2% because we want to at first achieve on 2%, and then on an annual basis or triennial basis, we'll be able to adjust that in accordance with the with how our contracts are actually awarded.
Thank you for that report. And as I mentioned in the committee meeting, our goal is ultimately to raise that participation level much higher if we can do so, but start out with this expectation to see how we do and then raise it higher, because I think there's an absolute need for more DBE participation.
Mr. Chair. Oh, Mr. Chair, I don't know who that.
Oh,
I would like, if with your permission.
turn on your.
It's my understanding that Ms. Dorr is fairly new at TBARTA, and I believe that some of the information that she reported out on may be inaccurate, which is why I voted no. But I would like, with the permission of the chair, if our finance director at PSTA could weigh in on what my concerns are, because she can speak about it in the language that need, and not, my area of expertise. Debbie?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Long. Yes, Diane, first of all, she's new, and I think she's also being very humble on the amount of work that needs to go into the development of the percentage. You're looking at what they call SIC and NAIC codes. Those are industry codes. So for everything that you're doing over the next 3 years, you're looking at what you're going to do, the number of DBEs that are ready, willing, and able to do the work, and then comparing it to all of the vendors that would most likely be able to do this. It's a federal goal, as Diane said. 2% I think is probably very reasonable, given that you don't have any construction. So it's based on the work you will actually be doing. FTA is very particular on this. So if you come below your goal, you have to do an analysis as to why you came below and what you're going to do to change, to improve. If you go above your goal, you also have to come back and say, well, maybe we need to revisit how we're looking at this. So I think that, Commissioner, your concern may have just been that when you're talking about the goal of 2%, our goal isn't to set it and then, do it low to look good. You're doing it to what's actual. There's a lot of calculation I'm sure Diane put into this, rather than just picking a low number and hoping to exceed it. And what I would like to offer is that PSTA is extremely involved with the DBE community. And we put on fairs every year, and we attend fairs in other cities, in other counties. So for TBARTA, I would like Diane to invite you to sit in on anything PSTA is doing that'll help you achieve the goal that you've established for FTA. And just so the board also understands, if you have a state-funded project and you have DBE participation, that is extremely good to do, but it doesn't count towards this goal. So I just wanted to put that out there as clarifications. Not so much inaccuracies, but clarifications. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them since I'm an old dog at this.
Questions? That's fine. Other comments, Commissioner?
No, I just be specific about why I voted no. And I am, again, trying to position us for moving forward, not only within our state legislature, but also with some of the new requirements that are coming down from the federal level with the new administration. And it's very helpful that we have established some very good relationships with the new FTA administrator, who happens to be the president of APTA this year, and I've actually met her. And we have some folks within our legislative delegation, actually, who have a very close relationship with the new Secretary Buttigieg. So I do think that there will be enormous opportunities for TBARTA going forward, given that we are allowed enough time to take advantage of some of the new opportunities. So I'm very hopeful. But I don't want to get our head over our skis, is what I'm trying to prevent.
And if I may,
Please.
But it sounds like our goal was reasonable at this time, state we're in, with the understanding, as the chair mentioned, that we always look to increase and enhance that program. With that said, we are looking for a motion in a second.
Commissioner Starkey?
So Commissioner Long, do you think this is happening too soon?
I do.
But is this not going to be some kind of federal rule that I'm hearing that we have to do a lot of these things to get any money? So I'm a little confused.
I am worried that it's a bit premature, that we don't have all our ducks in a row appropriately, and that while we have great aspirations, I think it's very important to lay the foundation to build on. And I am concerned that we have not done that, and it's going to come back to haunt us if we don't do it first.
Well, I think I am going to defer to you because I know you have been spending a lot of time in this area with TBARTA. So I'm just going to look to you for leadership on this one.
We can speak to it more thoroughly when I come back in April with my written report.
So should we table this discussion till April?
Or March, or whenever we're
March.
going to be doing the next meeting. I'm leaving that
I
up to
make a
Dave.
motion that we move this into that.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And so do you have to restate that? So going back to you, Chair.
Yeah, there's been all right. So there's been a motion by Cliff to
Manual.
And I second that.
No, I asked for a motion.
Yeah.
He was asking, he was saying, Chair, we need a motion, and then.
I was trying to keep it straight.
Yeah.
Motion's on the floor.
And I seconded it.
If I may ask, is there a due date for this requirement to be set?
Diane, do you?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is there a due date for this requirement?
What was the question?
Is there a due date that we need to have?
Oh, no, not so much a due date. It is just a requirement that we have the program, period.
I can't understand.
No due date.
So is it harmful to wait until we do our next?
He made a,
Better be done right.
Mr. Manning made a motion, I said.
Been a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Call the question. Jennifer, call the roll, please.
Jim Holton,
Yes.
Cliff Manuel,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Mayor Kreisman,
Yes.
Rich McLean,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkey,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
motion passes.
And Chair, my last item of discussion was, and it's not on our list here, but it was the possibility of establishing a regional MPO. And of course, Brian came back with us and gave us that debrief. During that discussion, though, we talked about the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Agency, and I believe I would like to turn this a little over to either Commissioner Long or Commissioner Starkey to talk a little bit about this. But in the end, we did ask the staff to go back and touch base with the regional planning organization to see about a joint meeting and come in with two minds, if you will. But I'll defer my comments over to Commissioner Starkey,
Whoever
Commissioner Long.
Commissioner Long, but she serves on both. So, but I'm in agreement that we discuss having a joint meeting. I'll let you.
So the regional planning councils have a very long and rich history in our state. And up until the year, and I want to say 2012, I could be wrong about that, when Governor Scott was elected. Was that 12? Do you remember, Rick?
It was earlier. I think he was elected.
Well, no, because we served.
Yeah, he was elected.
We served.
and- yeah.
No, we served with Governor Chris. Okay, well, anyway, whenever it was. The regional planning councils were funded by the state. In 2010, Mayor Kreisman said that's when it was.
Yeah, I guess he left office in 18. Scott
Okay,
elected to the Senate.
the point is Governor Scott vetoed all the legislation for the regional planning councils and all over the state, not just ours. And so from then until now, several of the regional planning councils dissolved of their own, on their own, because their member counties no longer wanted to participate. In our region, in the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Councils, all of the counties have stuck very tightly with the regional planning councils. And I'm sorry?
Yes.
And we have cities that are in it as well. And their mission is very finite. They do quite a bit of transportation planning, actually, for the local municipalities and for the counties, we contract with them. Long story short, now we have a bill filed by, I want to say her name is Jennifer Bradley from Jacksonville, who is former Senator Bradley's wife. And she has filed a bill to dissolve all the regional planning councils, eliminate them from Florida statute. Currently, they still are in Florida statute, and as a result, the counties are mandated to be members, just like with TBARTA. Now, in our region, that has been very positively received by our counties. The executive director is in constant communication with us. The fact that we did that climate change, resiliency, and sustainability summit, 2-day summit a year ago in January, really put the regional planning councils on the map. And as a result, we now have millions of dollars in grants that have come into the agency that are helping us to thrive. All that to say, when this bill surfaced from Senator Brandes, it immediately gave me pause because I thought about the mission of TBARTA in a regional way and the mission of the regional planning councils in the same kind of situation in the same way in terms of funding and finance and how they're financed. And so I thought, well, when when you have lemons, most of us try to figure out how to make lemonade, right? And maybe there's a win-win here because we can take two agencies, couple them together. It doesn't mean that, David doesn't still exist or our board doesn't still exist. It all is, as Commissioner Starkey said, the devil is in the details. And I think with some thoughtful planning and conversation and discussion with our stakeholders, it might serve to do, several things and solve a lot of problems. I had asked David when he first came here, and I asked John Sullivan. They were both relatively new at the time because our previous CEO at the Regional Planning Council had retired. We had a new person who was from New England. David was from the north, not quite New England. And I asked for the two of them to meet and figure out if there weren't ways that we could work together. In our county, we have a little motto that with partnerships, you get more done. And we've been very focused on that ever since I've been on the county commission. And I do think that there are ways where we can utilize each other's services the same way that we did with the memorandum of understanding between TBARTA and with PSTA. We don't, and that's one of the major concerns of Senator Brandis, by the way. I know you've talked with him. I've had several conversations with him over the years, and he is very concerned about the many different kinds of planning councils that we have within a particular region. Now, I also serve on Forward Pinellas. We had our strategic planning mission 2 Fridays ago. One page of that report had a graphic on it that showed the planning councils in our region. There were 5 of them. So there is room there for discussion, and which brings me to another point I have neglected to share. I don't know that Ron addressed it in his legislative report, but it surprised me. I'm new on the legislative committee of Forward Pinellas. It surprised me to learn the Forward Pinellas has a bill filed in the legislature. Senator Roussan is the sponsor of it. And it also asks for some of the things I've been advocating for here, such as tweaking policy. And so I said to myself, whoa, it'd be interesting for us to have Whit Blanton come and speak to us about what, he's our executive director on Forward Pinellas, because the subject matter of the regional MPO surfaced there as well. So that's a lot to say, but it kind of sets the foundation for, I think, where, and it's interesting because I swear to God, Commissioner Starkey and I never spoke about the idea of the regional planning council, so I'm thrilled to hear. Great minds think alike.
Well, so our thought is that we will hold a joint meeting between the 2 councils and just see, if there isn't a way that we can combine forces in some form or fashion to further everyone's mission. So, and frankly, all the missions are intertwined between the 2.
And the
At
same
the end of the day.
counties, interestingly enough, the same counties are part of the regional planning councils, except I think we have maybe 1 or 2 more.
You have more cities on the planning council.
What?
I think you have more cities on the planning council than we
Yeah,
do.
but we have a couple more counties too, because interestingly enough, Sarasota got out of their regional planning council. Now they want to be part of ours.
Oh.
And Citrus is in ours, Hernando is in ours, so.
No, and those comments I appreciate too. And I think that from my understanding of the purposes behind Senator Brandis's bill and some other concerns in the legislature, and I've heard the words duplicative and redundant and all that. And I think with as many agencies that come to bear on this topic, first and foremost is DOT. They do a wonderful job at what they do. The various other boards and commissions have all developed for specific purposes over many years. And to the extent we can, for efficiency purposes, merge those together, cooperate together, and ultimately, to Commissioner Flowers' point, serve the people we need to serve, not get caught up in the government and the structure of who does it, who delivers the services, but get the money actually to the people we need to be serving. That's the most important thing. So that's why I affirm the mission, but TBARTA needs to be open to
mergers, to whatever is in the best interest of ultimately the people we serve to help get them around the Tampa Bay region. And anything that will do that, I think will be receptive to legislative ears, that we're spending money wisely and judiciously, and we're trying to get projects done and not just going through a continual motion of studying them and reporting about them and then putting them on some shelf somewhere.
Well said.
And I think this board has accomplished its mission very, very well to date. But I concur with Senator Brandis that there needs to be real changes. I don't know what that means yet, whether that means abolition, whether that means merger with a regional planning authority, whether that means giving more work to DOT. I don't know. I'm not the ultimate decision maker on that. But my point is this board should be willing to entertain all possible solutions here. Because against the backdrop of not only this being reasonable and sensible, we have undergone the largest crisis of our lifetimes with this entire COVID pandemic. And on every level of government, and the folks here from counties and cities know that, most importantly, because you see the budgetary straits we're going to face. And in talking to the governor and talking to members of the legislature, there's a $2 billion potential shortfall in budgets here, and it doesn't take a brain scientist to know cuts are going to have to be made. So yeah, let's get proactive and let's meet with whomever to discuss these opportunities of working together. Because I think necessity is the mother of invention here, and we have to do that.
That's very good.
Okay.
And the question is when, and we need a format, you know, and a agenda, I think. So when might it be? Is it sooner rather than later? Is it April? Is it May?
Commissioner Long has serves on both boards.
I haven't really had, excuse me. I think we have an opportunity, and I think I would like to have some latitude to chat with our executive director, CEO, I forgot exactly what his title is, at the Regional Planning Council, have a discussion with David and see how we move forward. I mean, I don't pretend to sit here knowing all the answers, but I've been around in public policy long enough to know that if you get a group of people together and focus on the things that you can agree on, you can usually move mountains. And I think that I agree with Commissioner Chair Holton.
One day maybe.
You know, that there are a lot of opportunities here. There are concerns. I don't need to keep waxing on. I think I've made my point. There are concerns with TBARTA on the finances, on the way in which we, you know, make some decisions, and I think they need to be addressed. And I'm happy to work on them. I mean, I've worked too hard and I'm too passionate about my wanting to get this done. I have a very big sense of urgency about it. Look around. I mean, I'm probably the oldest person here in the room, having been in government for the longest. And I don't have as many years ahead of me. I don't have another 50 years to work on transportation. That's how long it's taken us to get to this point. And that's why I just am so almost in a panic about what this bill that Senator Brandis has come up with, because I'm very aware of how it sets us back for generations.
Commissioner Long, when is the next Regional Planning Council meeting? And
we always meet on a Monday morning, and if you hold on a minute, I'm sure Doyle already has it on my calendar.
So then hopefully you can bring up this idea and to their board to meet and.
It's Monday, March 8th.
Okay, so if you.
I will definitely be talking about it.
Then we'll go from there.
And we'll go from there, and I'll report back to David, and, well, I can't talk to you.
Report to David
So I'll
on.
talk to David.
Are you, so we don't need a motion for this, I assume we just a consensus to move
No,
forward?
this is like a little workshop right here.
Okay. Got it.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Chairman, this is Ron. I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, go. You said yes.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to get clarification, and I think it's a great question from Commissioner Starkey and Commissioner Long, and I love the board moving forward with, some solution-based ideas. Just remind everybody is the time that I'm living in with right now for your legislative agenda in Tallahassee, session starts on March 2nd and ends on April the 30th. And so I think any progress we can show over that 2-month period to demonstrate that we're trying to be solution-based and we're moving forward, I think would be excellent. So just kind of remember that, and also give me clarification on, I think what I've heard this morning is, we'll make sure this is correct, is we're not opposing Senate Bill 1130, that you want us to meet with delegation members, share with them obviously what TBARTA is doing, make sure they understand that we are going a different direction, what we're trying to do from a mission standpoint, but you don't want us to officially at any level oppose Senate Bill 1130 on behalf of the board at this point.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I know we're getting towards the end of our meeting, but if we're on we haven't had the director's report. Can I just put please on your agenda that when we get to item 10, Secretary Gwynn would like to be recognized?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so anything else then in the combination kind of finance or policy? Okay, moving on, in the interest of time too, my chairman's report was essentially my prior comments. So I think we all know what the consensus is here and how we have to move forward in a very positive and productive manner and try to explore opportunities with other agencies of government and other boards to be more efficient, to reduce duplication, and ultimately deliver the promises we've made to the folks of Tampa Bay. That said, I will recognize David for his executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start with CAC appointments, which are required every 2 years. Most of them need to be reaffirmed, so we're working on a list to bring to the board in April to get all of our members current. They're a great group, very active and engaged, and you may have been contacted by your CAC appointee already about their interest in continuing to serve. For anyone with vacancies, we'll continue working with them on identifying somebody to represent them, so we can also include them on a final list that we present you all for consideration in April. Secondly, I know air taxis are an area the board's particularly interested in bringing to Tampa Bay, and we continue to work with NASA on their model that will identify potential vertiport locations. But one other thing that we're doing to learn more about this developing technology is participating in the Urban Air Policy Collaborative. And this is a 5-month-long program administered by CAMI, which stands for Community Air Mobility Initiative. CAMI's mission is to educate and provide resources to local decision makers who are interested in advancing air mobility in their communities. And this collaborative is the program that they developed in order to do that. It's made up of agencies from around the country, many of which are state DOTs and local jurisdictions. And interestingly, this current group that we're participating in also includes staff from the city of Orlando and Orange County. So we're excited to talk with them and also learn about integrating air mobility with existing transportation systems. And then lastly, I want to give an update on TD Tampa Bay. Interest and ridership both continue to grow. In January, we completed 260 trips, which are nearly 4 times the number that we had in our first month of December. In the first week of February, we had our highest weekly demand yet with 81 trips. So if that trend continues, February's ridership will exceed that we had in January. Medical appointments and employment together make up 56% of the reason that people are using the service, with 20% riding for social reasons and 6% for education. We'll continue to provide updates every meeting, but each week gives us more data and provides a clearer picture of how the service is being used. As a reminder, we have no March meetings scheduled, no regular March meetings scheduled. Next regular meetings are on April the 23rd at HART. However, we will be polling the board related to any dates that they're available in March so that we can bring an updated financial plan back to you all for consideration. We have no new future meeting topics, and unless there are any questions, that concludes my report.
Members, questions for David? Okay, none being heard. Next topic is old and new business, and Secretary Gwynn, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, as you all know, we had the West Shore Interchange project deferred by 2 years with the latest budget. But we've been continuously looking for opportunities to move that project back into the previous slot in 2024. One approach that we're taking at this point is that we are going to be applying for an Infra grant to perhaps help us with the funding to move that forward or partially move that forward, part of the strategy. Unfortunately, they announced the application deadline this week, and it's very short. It's only until the middle of March. Part of our applications are that we need to get, or it helps our effort if we get letters of support for the Infra grant application from as many of our stakeholders as we can. So I'm bringing this up because I know a lot of the board members serve on county commissions, city councils, MPO boards. We'll be reaching out to them, and I apologize that we're going to ask for a very quick turnaround on the letters, but we hope that all the stakeholders who supported us in the past will support us as we look for this Infra grant. One of the nice things about the Infra grant process is that it also may allow us to have better access to TIFIA funds. So it's just part of our overall strategy. We don't have an answer yet. We keep trying, and your staff at those other agencies, as well as TBARTA, will be getting a request, if not today, early next week, to help us with those letters. And that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Starkey.
Did you need those? We don't have another meeting in February. Our next meeting is March 9th. Commission.
Well, and I don't know if which organizations would require a motion by the board, or since they've supported us in the past and named it as a regional priority, it would just be to support the grant application. The grants are actually due March 19th. So we're trying to get them obviously before then, but even if we don't have them before then, typically on these applications, there's a link in the application to a website or a web link that could link to the letters of support. And as we get them in, we'll continue to add them during the review process.
Okay, I'm sure we'll be supportive, just the mechanism, we got to work on.
Commissioner Long?
Secretary Gwynn, our county commission in Pinellas meets on Tuesday. If there's any way you can get what you want signed off on, if you'd get it to me, that would be great. Otherwise, it'll be March as well.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Secretary, would you like a letter from TBARTA supporting that application?
Absolutely. If as a stakeholder, that would also be appreciated.
And how about PSTA?
Yes, actually, we received, I think, 20 some letters of support for the interchange previously from PSTA, from HART, from all 3 county commissions in Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, the city councils at St. Petersburg and the city of Tampa and Clearwater, TBARTA, a number of other organizations, folks like West Shore Alliance, Tampa Bay Partnership. So we're going to be reaching out to all those folks who supported us in the past. And typically the deadlines are not these quick. And so I apologize for that. But it came out this week and they told us that March 19th is the deadline for the applications.
Thanks. We've lost our forum here, it seems, today, but David, please put that on the agenda for next meeting to formally have a resolution to support a letter.
Well, those remaining,
Yeah.
you can just develop a letter of support.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yes.
We already voted for the project.
We did. Then perfectly consistent to just do a letter immediately. Thank you. Any other new business to come before the board? None being heard, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.